Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 248 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. This is the flagship show of our site, the world's most advanced gaming website. Here we are in the heart of March, the slowest March that I can remember on recent memory. February was slow. I had medical issues. We weren't able to do shows in February. We didn't really miss much. Here we are back in March, Matt. Still not missing much. If you're not watching podcasts. It's really crazy, man. Like,
we have to start
heck?
reviewing like indie games we missed from like the late 2020.
I've been considering all kinds of stuff this past week. I'm like, should I go back and like play some old games and see if like they still hold up today? Like just tons of featurey stuff, but man, it is crazy what's going on what isn't going on right now? We just launched a brand new generation of consoles. It's really bizarre, I think. Like,
I don't think it is. Not that part anyway. Like new consoles always have that like dead zone for 3 months after the launch. There's nothing coming out for a while. What's unusual is that it's dried up for the old systems too. Right. Usually you still have a flood of releases for the previous systems, but I think the pandemic has just disrupted so much workflow that we've finally hit this point where nobody got any work done for a few months a year ago, and we're feeling it now.
Yeah, I mean, this generation is different, though, because games for last gen play on this gen generally just fine. So my expectations were a little different. And look, you can look ahead. You can watch Dossier, every month and figure out what's coming or not. And I did, and I worked on it with Vincent, and we published it. But we've done that before, and usually stuff just happens, and it just hasn't been happening. We have put together, I think, a pretty good show for you guys today. We're doing our best to try to get good shows out for you guys every week. And if you're listening to this show out on the wilds of the internet on your favorite podcasting service, you want to support the show, head to patreon.com/sifted. Sifted is supported 100% by patrons who we appreciate very much. I already see a bunch of people jumping in and giving us the Twitch Prime love. I saw Wampler13. He's hit 30-some months in a row. It's pretty interesting because now on Pactor Factor, and the hype train's already at level 4. Sound Wizard hooking it up with the gift subs. Thank you. That's awesome. It's been interesting with Pactor Factor. We started putting people's Twitch Prime streaks in Pactor Factor. So it'll have their name if they subscribed and how many months in a row they subscribed. A lot of like our hardcore users don't do it every month. I don't know how or why. Maybe it's just slipping their mind. But a lot of people who have been with us since the beginning are at like 1 month streaks, 2 month streaks. But not Wampler. Wampler's at like 30 months. And thanks again, Sound Wizard, for all the subs. Thanks, Minority Games, for all the bits that you're showering in our chat. Thanks, everyone, for all their support in any way that you do it. Thanks to our patrons. Our Patreon's actually up a little bit for the first time in forever. It hasn't gone unnoticed. Thank you very much to people who have gone there and supported us. If you watch the show on YouTube, head to patreon.com/sifted. If you want to see this show keep going, that's the only way you can ensure that happens. But anyway, I think we have done a decent job of getting a show together for you guys today. No real big games to talk about. I think we'll have Monster Hunter Rise next week. The timing for that going to work out? It'll be like right on the borderline, I think. A lot of it will depend on if I get early code or not from Capcom, which usually we do. So we should be able to talk about that next week. And the embargo, obviously, will come into play there as well. But I think we do have some pretty interesting stuff to talk about. A big thing that was in the works this week finally came to fruition. And that is that the deal with Microsoft buying Bethesda finally went through for good. At least good enough so that Microsoft felt okay about promoting it. And promote it they did, Matt, with like an hour and a half long live stream. How far into that did you make it before you tuned out?
Like 15 minutes. Like there's nothing of interest.
I'm actually kind of impressed that you made it that far, Matt. Like it got in about 10 minutes in, and I was like, wait a minute, they're talking to the PR person, and she's talking about how she argued with like the PR person from Xbox, and I'm like, where is this all headed? Once Phil Spencer kind of clarified what was going to happen with Bethesda's exclusives, that was really the only information that they announced in that thing, other than just a bunch of glad handing and saying how great it is to work together. And This was a long time in the making, and finally we've consummated the relationship, that type of stuff. And then Phil Spencer was kind of dodgy about what's happening with exclusives. He said some games will be exclusive to Xbox and PC. What did you take that as, Matt? I took it as honestly.
I took it as like, we're not going to take Elder Scrolls Online or Elder Scrolls Blades off of other platforms, but everything else we're keeping.
Yeah. It sounded to me like anything that we're under contract to publish on another platform, we'll do it. We're not going to break contracts, or we're not going to pay to break contracts, but everything else.
What you call it? What's the time-oriented shooter whose name I can never remember?
Time-oriented shooter.
Yeah, the timeline where you redo the timeline over and over again.
Oh, Deathloop.
Deathloop. I kept wanting to call it Doom Scroll. It's I'm sure that'll stay. But I think everything going forward that isn't already isn't already being pressed at the disc factory is going to be what they actually said was platforms with Game Pass.
Yeah. Really, it's like he didn't even talk about Xbox or PC. He said,
no, it's just like, do we have Game Pass on it? Then we have a presence on it, and that's what we're going to sell it through. So PC, Xbox, what have you, that Game Pass works on.
Yeah, it's interesting that his verbiage was, these are exclusives for Game Pass. It wasn't like, he didn't say Xbox or PC. He said, we got them for exclusives on Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, for over a year, we've been saying Game Pass is at Microsoft's new angle.
Yeah.
It's what they're going to push. It's what they're going to consider their platform. They just want you in the ecosystem. And this is just more evidence for that.
Yeah, I was still surprised, though. Because
you don't spend $4 billion and not push it towards the thing you're putting all your weight behind. Whether what you're putting all your weight behind makes sense or not. I mean, I come from G4. We spent 3 years pushing interactivity on television. It doesn't always make any sense, but when that's the mandate, you do it.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems it's odd for me, having worked in this industry for so long, where it was always about the platform, a piece of hardware that you push to. And when you consider that, to me at least, for Microsoft's purposes, Xbox Series X is going to be the vehicle that delivers Game Pass, I think, for most people. Maybe PC ultimately. Right now, it's certainly PC more than Series consoles, because everyone has a PC and people still can't buy an Xbox Series console for the most part. But
you're kind of rubbing up against the theoretical audience versus the actual audience on that one, I guess, because the everyone has a PC thing is true, but at the same time, PC stuff is always a fraction of console when it comes to actual raw sales. But we don't know how that's going to translate to Game Pass usage yet.
I mean, there's mobile to consider as well. I mean, everyone has a phone, and as powerful as phones are now, you can run a lot of stuff on Game Pass pretty well on your phone.
Oh, sure. I'm not going to play Forza Horizon 4 on a phone. I mean, it's a nice trick, but like, I think you're right. We're talking mostly about the Xbox for now.
Yeah.
But
so
I
it's
think
surprising that it wasn't more of a push, particularly in that presentation.
I don't find that surprising anymore. That's just not been Microsoft's focus for well over 2 years now. Like, they're not going to try to make you buy an Xbox. They're just happy if you did, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how successful that will be, but like, it certainly seems to be their MO right now. It does seem very likely that if you want to play Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6 on a console, you are going to need to own an Xbox, though.
I think that's the big question. I think that's what everybody is wondering. Is in Starfield, my guess is it's coming first. There are rumors now that it's coming out this year. Do you believe that, Matt?
No,
I don't either.
Not for 1 second.
Yeah.
I would like it to be true, but I do not believe it.
I don't believe it either. But do you think that if there is one game that maybe Bethesda does have a contract with another platform, it might be Starfield?
No, because the negotiations with Sony for that fell through.
Oh, you know that for a fact.
Well, they talked about that already, that Sony was negotiating for Starfield to be an exclusive, and then the Microsoft sale happened, basically.
Right, but that doesn't mean that there's not something in place for it to at least come to a PlayStation platform.
I doubt that went through if the Microsoft sale started to happen in the middle of negotiations. I think Starfield will be Xbox only. Yeah, Xbox and PC.
I think Elder Scrolls 6 definitely going to be Game Pass.
Oh yeah, Elder Scrolls 6 is barely an idea in Todd Howard's head right now. Beyond like per concept art, I would think. But Starfield, I think, will be. Frank, if I'm Microsoft, I will just buy those contracts out if they exist. Like, no, like you need to buy an Xbox to get Bethesda Software's next big game. Like, it's as simple as that.
And then,
like, if I were Microsoft, that would be my like no questions asked strategy. Like whatever we need to do to make Starfield exclusive to Game Pass platforms, that's what we do.
And then, of course, the rest of the library. Do you remember that trailer that Bethesda put out that was like saving single player? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember
We're
that.
showing that right now. And that really is Bethesda's wheelhouse is, single player driven games. Something that honestly Microsoft has kind of fallen short on. This kind of like two puzzle pieces locking together in a lot of ways with these two companies. I did see some ire on Sifted over the last few days from PlayStation fans who are, I think they're starting to realize the finality of this now and the impact of this now, that if they want to play these games, they're going to have to buy an Xbox or they're going to have to get their PC to a place where they're happy playing games on it. And that's not a cheap proposition. So for most people, it's like now you got to try to find a PS5, which is not easy right now.
Well, luckily, most of them have spent a lot of time saying how Skyrim wasn't that good because it didn't run well on PS3. So
yeah,
now they got their wish. They don't have to worry about it anymore.
What do you think about all the games that just immediately went up on Game Pass? 20 games, like boom, right there.
I mean, it makes sense. That's what you want. You want value for that platform. That's why you bought the company. I also like that they put up a bunch of patches for existing games, backwards compatibility. They put up 60 frames per second patches, 4K patches on I think Prey, Skyrim, Fallout 76, Fallout 4 on Series X. That's good support. Like, it kind of dropped that out of nowhere on Monday. I would like to see them do that for Dishonored as well.
Yeah. And then Oblivion looks and runs pretty well as well.
I will never play Oblivion again.
Well, how come?
I just ended up finding Oblivion very bland in the end. And I remember pushing myself through the final DLC to just be done with it. I know Skyrim gets a lot of shit, but I think it's a tremendous improvement over Oblivion. I certainly acknowledge that Oblivion was a step backwards in many ways from Morrowind. And I will play Morrowind again gladly, especially with mods. And I will play Skyrim again, probably in spite of myself. But I will never touch Oblivion again. Oblivion gives me that same sort of blasé nausea that other games I've played too much do. Like Phantasy Star Online does that to me too.
I just downloaded Phantasy Star Online 2, and I'm going to give it a go. It's like the free game with gold this month on Xbox.
Oh, it's always free.
Oh, it's always free?
PSO2 is a free-to-play game, but you pay for it's like ESO. Like you pay for cosmetics and stuff. I don't know. I get the games with gold little packs they give out for Phantasy Star Online 2, but I've never actually installed it.
I just installed everything. I'm going to try it. I have not played it at all. And things are so dry right now. I'm like, what can I play?
It's pretty good as I understand it. It's just, you have a lot of content to get through because it's been out for years and years in the East, in Asia. So, oddly enough, I did actually play a little Skyrim this morning. I don't remember why. I haven't modded to within an inch of its life, so it looks very good.
Oh wait, you were playing it on PC, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
I do also have it modded to within an inch of its life on Xbox. I mean, the special edition does support mods on Xbox.
Now, another thing about this deal is that Microsoft might have a little more success on a platform that it's really failed on so far, which is mobile. Right now, we're looking at Elder Scrolls Blades, which hasn't done crazy well for Bethesda, but Bethesda has had a couple mobile hits. And
it's done fine, and apparently it's done pretty well on Switch. I prefer it on Switch, frankly.
I prefer to play anything on anything but mobile, to be perfectly honest.
Just because I get to use a controller, it means it's better on Switch. Maybe. I don't know what else is there other than Elder Scrolls Blades.
Fallout Shelter was a huge hit.
Oh, right.
I don't even know if people even play it anymore, but it did really well at least for a couple years.
I just haven't thought about it in forever.
I don't play a ton of mobile games, but a lot of people do. Yeah. So, and then you start thinking about some of the games that should have done better for Bethesda but didn't, like Prey.
All of them?
Like a lot of them. But games like Prey or Dishonored, going on Game Pass.
Wolfenstein.
And staying there, which is an important thing. We do Game Pass or fail every week. And a lot of what we look at in that feature is this game so big that you're going to have to kind of just power through it to get it done before it disappears off of Game Pass. And to us, that's a detriment for Game Pass. But when you have games like Prey and Dishonored that are there, and they're going to be there for good now, do you think more people will give them a chance because they're just kind of a part of the service?
I mean, there's no real reason not to. At the same time, like some of those, I mean, there's a point where you could pick up Prey, I think, on sale for like $10, or even less. Like, I think I got Prey and the Dishonoreds, like the Dishonored collection plus Prey in some bundle last year on Xbox Series X or Xbox, maybe it was One X. It was probably before the Series X came out. I think I got that bundle for like $15. Like, it was nothing. Like, they sell those games for pennies on the dollar at this point. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, Game Pass makes it exciting. On the other hand, like, if you didn't even want to throw $9 at Prey, I don't know if you're going to spend the time to download it now, but you should, because it's good. And now it runs at 60 if you have a Series X.
Now, Matt, the next thing I want to discuss inside this topic, is this past weekend, we did a live Zoom call for Ask Shane Anything. And one of the questions that someone asked me was kind of, what are my impressions of next-gen consoles now that we're 4 months in? You know, at first, I think we were in agreement that, you know, PS5 had the stronger kind of opening volley. But they were asking, they're like, how do you feel now? Have things changed? And I'll be honest, Matt, for me, things have kind of changed a little bit. I don't use my PlayStation 5 hardly at all anymore. I have found myself, as time has gone on, using my Xbox Series X more. Now, part of it could be the novelty of Game Pass, the fact that there's just tons of stuff on there to check out, and I'm always kind of just going there and looking around for stuff. But then the Bethesda deal happens, and there seems to be a lot more promise as far as exclusive games. I don't know if you saw it or not, but recently they released some new screenshots for Halo Infinite that made the game look a lot better. Did you see those screenshots?
No.
Okay, they put out like 5 or 6 new screens for Infinite that were like jaw-dropping. I was like, oh, okay, that's starting to look a little more interesting now. Then you start
Let's see him move.
And then you start thinking about all Bethesda stuff and Game Pass. Have your impressions of Gen 9 changed at all recently?
Not really, because I have actually always used the Xbox more due to backwards compatibility and all that. The PS5 has been play stuff I can't play on anything else. The difference is that early on, when the launch had just happened, there was a lot more you could only play on PS5, and I played that, and then I finished all that, and now I'm kind of back on the Xbox, which is where all my backwards compatibility stuff and, like, you know, it's just where I kind of settled. I'm used to it now. I go back to the PS5 periodically to play. I play some Street Fighter. Most of my fighting games are on that, so I will go back and play those. But like the PS5 stays pretty idle these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking down the road and
waiting for Ratchet, basically.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's stuff like Returnal that's coming, but
a
lot of that stuff that's coming, like, you can see already that those games are going to be 5-6 hours long. Like The Medium, you know, that lasted not very long. You get kind of excited about the games and you play them and you realize they're gone in a day.
I played Medium on Game Pass. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people did.
Same with Outriders, and my Outriders is on Game Pass now. And I'm like, oh, that solves that problem.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I probably would not play that.
Then you look at something like Kenna, and it's like, that looks cool, but that's also coming to PC, and it also probably is not going to be especially long. So you're right. You're kind of looking at Ratchet, which is coming in the middle of the year. And then what are you looking at after that? You're looking at maybe Horizon in Q4, maybe not Horizon in Q4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Kena, but which, by the way, apparently was mispronounced in that.
Yeah, how does Sony get that wrong?
Like that's not how the dev team pronounces it. Kena. Apparently.
Yeah, we actually had it right at the beginning. It's Kenna. And then in the trailer, they were saying Kena for some reason. Like, Sony just got it wrong, which is not a good
I thought it was
look.
the other way around.
No, In the trailer, Sony called it Kena. And the developers are like, no, it's Kenna. So everyone was saying it right all along. Sony just confused people whenever they said it wrong in that trailer.
I thought that was the other way around because I've always said Kena.
No, that's incorrect. It's Kenna is the correct way to say it. But anyway, so you're right. It's like Ratchet and then maybe Horizon before the end of the year. That's not a lot. So I don't know. Like, as of right now, if someone asked you, like, you know, they're both equally hard to get right now. But as of right now, if someone asks you, like, which of the two would you recommend to somebody, is your answer still PS5, Matt?
Yeah, because PS5 is going to have the exclusive stuff and probably the higher quality exclusive stuff in the long run. And you can play most of what we're talking about on PS5 as well, despite the storage shortage. I mean, I'm still in the place where if I could only have one, I'd pick the PS5 just because of Sony's own output. But in terms of sort of a daily driver, the Xbox Series X has sort of taken over. But that is sort of an embarrassment of riches situation more than something I would, it's not like I'd be unhappy if I only had the PS5. I could do a lot of what I've been doing on the Xbox, also on the PS5. I've just kind of become accustomed to the Xbox environment, partly because I used the One X so long, and also because I have actual storage space on the Series X. I have 3 terabytes on the Series X.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And one reason the PS4 had a big advantage last time was its hardware was more powerful and easier to work on. Third-party stuff looked better on PlayStation 4. That's not the case anymore. Like, at the very least, they're on equal footing. And then in some cases, it appears Xbox looks a little better. In some cases, PS5 looks a little better. But they're both serviceable. And then I start to think about, like, the exclusive stuff that's coming. And, we were like, oh, we're going to have to wait until Halo Infinite on Xbox. Well, the situation's not that much better on PS5, let's be honest, although it did have at least a couple games at launch. I think the question has become more difficult to answer in the last 4 months than it was at launch. And you start talking about stuff like the storage and things like that. Another interesting thing, I don't know if you watched one of the latest Pactor factors, but Pactor actually gave up some MPD data in a recent episode, which he probably isn't supposed to do. He got away with it by saying, I'm just going to give you rounded numbers and not give you the exact numbers. But he still said that in the opening, month and a half or 2 months of Xbox Series on the market, they only sold, like $100 million worth of software. They had sold, 20,000 games for Series consoles because everybody is using Game Pass. Like, people have got the message. They have figured it out. They're like, why buy games for this thing? I'll just spend $10, $15 a month for Game Pass, whichever version I want, and that's all I'm going to do. It's pretty crazy how quickly Microsoft has got the messaging out there to the point where people are following it and they're not buying games. Like, Pactor was, completely shocked. He's like, look, I know that, it's Game Pass and core people know about it, but he was shocked at how many of the casual folks have already picked up on what a deal Game Pass is and that they've started using it instead of buying games. So I don't know, Matt. It's looking pretty interesting at this point. This is great, all great news, by the way, because we're going to talk about something a little later on in the show that may or may not have been influenced by some of the moves that Microsoft has been making over the last 4 months since launch. To me, if you ask me which one has built momentum since the launch of Generation 9, it's Microsoft, undoubtedly. Especially after this announcement with Bethesda where Phil was basically like, yeah, this stuff's going to be exclusive to Game Pass, so get on board, There's a little bit of ambiguity for a while where we didn't know. We're like, oh, maybe some of this stuff will come up. And the way they were messaging it wasn't very clear, and I think that's a mistake on Microsoft's part as well. But I don't know. I am starting to see a little bit of a shifting of the tide. If somebody asks me now, which one should I buy, I am now at the point where instead of it just being a no-brainer with PlayStation, I will now ask, what games do you like? Which hasn't really been the case for Xbox v. PlayStation for a while for me. So I think Xbox is doing a great job, and I think they're making the right moves, and I think that now they're getting the right messaging out there, and I think it could pay big dividends for them in year 2, year 3, as the consoles become more readily available and you're not having to camp on Twitter watching Wario64's Twitter feed trying to get one, which is still just insane, by the way. I've tried 2 more times since last week to get, my nephew a PS5 and Pactor a PS5. It's just pointless. It's impossible. I've tried to get graphics cards, too. I tried to get a GPU this past week. No chance. It's absurd that you cannot buy something that you want to buy. But that's where we're at. So I think it's a pleasant surprise for me that Xbox in 4 months has managed to pretty significantly shift my perspective on Xbox Series platform. I really didn't expect it, even knowing that, how long have we known about Bethesda now? 6 weeks, something like that, 5 or 6 weeks. Even knowing that, It's just in the last week, really, where I started to kind of perk up and be like, look at what's happening here. There's a changing of the guard, a shifting of the tides a little bit. I didn't know if people would get on board with Game Pass the way that they have, and they have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those sales numbers,
it doesn't change my recommendation or thoughts on the current systems, though. It might 2-3 years from now, when these games that we're talking about actually exist and are available. But for now, if a casual friend came to ask me about it, I would still say PS5 without any reservation.
Yeah, because there's not a third-party advantage on Xbox. It's like they're pretty much on equal footing at this point. And you're right. Then it's like, which exclusives do you think are better? And I agree with you. I would, if I had to choose which exclusives to play, I would choose PlayStation's exclusives.
And that might change down the road. Maybe Halo Infinite turns out to be amazing. Maybe that Fable game turns out to blow everybody's minds. It's possible. There could be a seismic shift in that regard that at least puts them on somewhat equal footing in the exclusive realm. But we're not going to know that until 2023 or so.
I think a lot depends on when do these games come out.
Right.
I mean, if Microsoft really gets it in gear and we get Fable next year, and maybe Starfield does by some miracle come out this year. I mean, if that were to happen.
Or even next year. I mean, next year for Starfield would be entirely fine for me.
Yep.
Part of me doesn't expect Starfield till 2023. So anything's better than nothing at this point.
And I think that's really what I'm coming to the conclusion of is we've got nothing for either one of them really for this entire year.
I still wouldn't call PlayStation 5 nothing. It's just been a couple of dead months. Ratchet's coming, Returnal's coming, Kina's coming, Horizon's at the end of the year. I look at the PS5 and I'm like, you're going to have some really good stuff soon.
I just think Returnal and Kina are going to end up being these really short indie-like experiences that are going to be cool and maybe really fun, but they're going to be a flash in the pan where you play them for a day and a half, and you're like, now what? Something like Starfield, big games like that, like Horizon, those games that you really sink your teeth into and take you a week and a half, 2 weeks to get through, incentivize you maybe to go and play them again a different way. Those types of games, I think, are the ones that are really going to kind of put the meat on the skeleton for these platforms. And I think it's a race now to get the Avowed. There's a lot of games that are coming for both platforms.
Oh, Avowed is so far away.
Yeah,
I bet we'll be playing Starfield before we play Avowed.
I would probably agree with that. Yeah,
we've been down the Obsidian Road before.
Yes, we have. That sounds like the name of a game, Obsidian Road.
Yeah, I wouldn't call. I wouldn't call Ratchet a small game.
No, definitely not.
Doesn't roll that way.
Yeah, I wasn't lumping it in.
It's enough. I mean, look, early on in this thing's life, you're talking about one major game a quarter, and you're kind of good. Nintendo never really moves past that schedule most of the time, so that works for them. So I think they're okay. It's and also again, you can't not factor in the pandemic. Shuffle that's pushing everything back, because now is the time when we really are going to start seeing the results of delays from a year ago. That 3-month period where everybody figured out from March to June how to do all the work from home pipelines for this stuff. And, you even saw that in, I think it was in the credits of Raya the Last Dragon, that new Disney movie, where they basically have a big thank you to everyone who made this movie from home. Slate and on their
Sega's
credits.
Most recent financial report, it mentioned that hey, now we're starting to see the issues from the pandemic because for whatever reason, Sega wasn't able to scramble as well as a lot of other publishers. And it basically said we're going to have a lean year because now the chickens are coming home to roost. We had a huge time period there where no one was getting any work done. And right now is when those projects would be releasing or when we had scheduled them for release. So a lot of our projects have been shifted. You may not get them until the end of the year now, or you may not get them until early next year. Yeah, which is like you said before, March is like the whole, a lot of fiscal years end at the end of March. So people are, get it out by March and you're good. Yep. But you're going to see, lean years because a lot of these games and projects are going to fall out of that fiscal year. Yep.
Which is
maybe next March will be awesome.
It's kind of like how I got friends who have or parents who are all worried about it's the kids are going to be hopelessly behind in their education. And I'm like, why?
Everyone's behind. They're all on the
behind.
same.
They're all behind. It's also it's like, oh, they did, like you worried your kid didn't learn what he needed to learn in 7th grade. It's like, I went to college with a bunch of people that didn't know what a thesis paragraph was. Like, they'll be fine. Yeah. I promise. Like,
I think parents just want the kids out of the house, and
I think that is a lot of it. Yes.
They're like, I want my free babysitter back. Like, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah. Like I said, and not just for parents, but the pandemic did force a lot of people to have to sit and look very closely at a lot of their life choices.
Yep, absolutely.
So
that's a good point. So anyway, that's the latest on Xbox Series and Game Pass and PC. I think things are looking up in general for that platform, particularly Game Pass. I thought the messaging was interesting. Yeah. And
I don't think Microsoft could be doing anything more right now. Like they're a couple years behind where they should be, but they are doing what they should be doing.
Yep.
Like, I don't know what else they could do. And, hopefully by 2023, we'll be sitting here and, probably the numbers game will still have PlayStation way ahead. But I think by 2023, we might be sitting here being like, wow, this is a really close race.
We might have a real console war this time,
in terms of like quality.
Because they've both done a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
It may be like a legit, we haven't had, when was the last like really close console war?
I mean, 360 PS3 wasn't a blowout, and PS3 did close the gap near the end.
It was close, but then
Xbox pulled away,
and then PlayStation caught it at the way.
Yeah, PlayStation end. Caught it eventually. I mean,
yeah.
Look, it's been a long time. I mean, the last real close fight technically was probably Genesis, Super Nintendo in the early days, and Super Nintendo pulled way ahead by the end of that. But the last time you really didn't know what the outcome was going to be was probably that gen, because PS1 and PS2 were not competitions at all. Yeah. Like, that was just Sony ran away. Like, Sony just took off like a fucking rocket, and you never saw them again. And it was, left to Sega, Nintendo, and Microsoft and Nintendo to fight it out for second place. We have, this could be a real, and again, numbers wise, sales wise, Sony did it again. I mean, like, Xbox is probably not going to catch them.
Yeah, because PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling console ever in the history of video game consoles.
Yeah.
So everyone who said console gaming is dead, it's the fastest selling console
I've been mocking people who say that for a decade now. So it's
it's spanking.
Packer can keep trying to make fetch happen on that, but it ain't happening.
It's spanking the Switch. Like, I'm surprised that it's like whooping the Switch even. Like, it's crazy. We'll see if it can sustain.
Not the Switch, the Switch refresh stupid thing, whatever this is, but when the Switch 2 or whatever it is comes out, I bet you'll see records set by that too. Like,
it's possible.
People want the actual unit in their house.
Yeah, and I also think with Game Pass, games like for us, like Dishonored or Prey that we've already played, there's a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid who just turned 12 or 13 who has never played those games. The back catalog that Bethesda's offering on Xbox has a lot more value for them than it does for people like us. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of impacts and shapes the race. But it's just exciting to have two worthy competitors going toe-to-toe. It's going to make it better for everybody.
Did you see slight tangent? But did you see? Was it Imran? I think Imran Khan was that. He's talking about, because they said that Super Bomberman or whatever, the Bomberman on Stadia, which was exclusive to Stadia, is going to come to other platforms. And I think it was Imran who said a Stadia representative looked me dead in the eye and told me that no other platform could ever run this game because of Stadia's advantages. And here we are again.
A Bomberman game. Okay.
A bomber.
That guy needs to educate himself.
Thing. It was something about how the cloud thing worked that only Stadia could run the Bomberman game, and it's just like,
well, it just shows you the crap that was getting shoveled onto his doorstep to get him to pull the trigger on Stadia.
Yeah.
And now he's like, oh crap. It's pretty crazy. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about what was undoubtedly the biggest debut from this week as far as games are concerned. A game called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. It is a spiritual successor to an arcade game that I honestly had no idea was as big as it is. People. Oh
my God.
I'm shocked, Matt. Like, obviously I loved it, and I know you loved it, but dude, like first of all, this is like one of the most watched things on Sifted in the last month. It is one of the most commented things on Sifted in the last month. It is
that Ninja Turtles game was a touchstone for a generation. Like there is no comparison. There's no comparison. Like that is the defining Konami 4-player beat 'em up. Like no question.
Like I know for us it is, but like people who are younger than us, it seems to have resonated with them just as strongly. Like did they play it in the arcades like we did?
No, they played it on Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
They played it on the arcade game came to NES. There was a 360 or Xbox Arcade version. There was the Hyperstone Heist. There was Turtles in Time. There were versions of and sequels to it all through the Super Nintendo era and the Genesis era, and all that's But a lot of the younger people today, like they got handed down those 16-bit systems by their parents.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, of course, Ninja Turtles as a brand has never gone away through all these years. And even if you are, into the early 2000s Nickelodeon version or whatever, you can still play the old 80s and 90s stuff and recognize the characters and understand what's going on and get into it. Like you don't need, that's the thing that Ninja Turtles has been pretty smart about is they haven't continually reinvented the wheel. They've just sort of slightly updated it and put it into new art styles, but you can always go back to those original Turtles and it still pretty much works. The other thing that might have been part of it is like the modern versions of the Turtles have had crossover stuff with the old 80s versions at times. So that might have brought some of them into that. It's like, oh, what's these other versions of because they have different tones, but they're all the same characters more or less. And of course this game is just one of those things, even when we were kids, I remember like I knew people who went to the arcades and never went to the arcades or went to the arcades just to play this Ninja Turtles game. And it was a staple of like family fun centers for years and years and years after most games of that era went away.
That's like a good point, Matt. Like you could go to movie theaters like 10 years after later and there would be one of these cabinets there.
Like early 2000s at the Metreon, I remember like one of the theater there had one of those. You could see that cat with that stupid, half-assed April O'Neil cosplay with a giant fright wig and the camera on the side of the arcade machine. Like I remember you passed by that every time you went to the snack machine. But yeah, it was. It's just one of those ubiquitous arcade games that ever you had that, or you had an NBA Jam or the Simpsons game. Those 4-player games made bank.
The X-Men game.
X-Men, yeah.
Was that 6 players though?
X-Men could be 6 players. Yeah, there was a 6-player version.
Like that game stuck out to me more than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for some reason.
Well, X-Men was first, so it was probably more unique at the time because that was sort of the beginning of the Konami beat 'em up thing. Here's my unpopular opinion. As someone who read X-Men for 40 years of his life, that X-Men game is not very good.
Yeah, I know it's not.
It's clunky. The combat is unfair and designed to kill you as fast as possible. The super move drains your health, which is ridiculous. The Ninja Turtles game is infinitely better. The X-Men thing was just unique because I was like, oh my God, I get to see Wolverine in a video game, which was weird in 1988.
There were also some strange characters that you could play as. It wasn't all like megastar like X-Men.
Well, it was all based on the X-Men Pride of the X-Men cartoon, which was meant as a pilot for an animated series that never happened.
Interesting.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that was the team in that because that was more or less the team in the comics at the time was Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Dazzler. Dazzler being the one that nobody knows now because she was very popular in the 80s. She began as a roller skating glam pop star queen.
I remember that.
And vanished at the end of the 80s, like just disappeared.
Why is that?
In universe, she ended up in the Mojo-verse with Longshot and wasn't seen forever. In the real world, it was because disco was out and no one knew what to do with Alison Blair anymore. And they just sort of shunted her in another dimension and didn't mention her for another 10 years. She's back and in stuff now, but like for a long time, she was gone.
Why do you think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have endured? Because the concept itself is pretty absurd. I mean, they're like human turtle things that are ninjas. Like
they're monsters who do cool shit and eat pizza, and like that's about all you need.
Really? Is that really all you need?
Apparently, I mean, all you need is a hook for kids to like think that they're cool, and for whatever reason, kids like monsters, kids like ninjas, kids like teenagers who do teenage stuff, and that Ninja Turtles hits them all. And they all have different that's the other thing. They all have different personalities. It's a it's a team thing. Everybody got different colors.
You can see yourself
if
in
you
one
like,
of them.
Tinkering with stuff, you like Donatello and science stuff, or if you like being sarcastic, like Raphael's funny. If you like being a goofball, Michelangelo's the class clown. If you're I don't know why you like Leonardo. Actually, I don't.
He was kind of the oddball. You're right.
You like swords. You like Leonardo. I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess Leonardo's the diligent, hardworking one. So if you're a diligent, hardworking kid, why are you watching cartoons? Go do some math. But I think it's and they've got the mentor thing, and it was
people
an early
in chat are saying Leo's great. What are you talking about?
I mean, Leo is my favorite in the old comics, so I'm not dissing Leo. I'm just saying in the version of the turtle, because here's the
Leo
secret.
is the straight man. That's what chat's saying.
Leo is definitely the straight man.
Yeah.
But here's the secret. I actually read the Ninja Turtles comics before they were anything, before they were the cartoon came out. I think my cousin would get me stuff, and I read the old black and white ones where they murder the Shredder in the first issue,
right?
and like just hack everybody. The original comics were straight R-rated Daredevil homages.
Yeah, they were hardcore.
In fact, the origin of their origin is tied to Daredevil, because Daredevil's origin is that he pushed the old man out of the way of the runaway truck, and a canister of experimental goo flew out and hit him in the face and blinded him and gave him the powers.
Absurd.
In the Ninja Turtles origin is he did that. A blind man did that and saved this guy, and the canister bounced off his head, rolled into the sewers, and mutated 4 turtles who had been thrown in the sewer.
Oh, right.
So that's why Splinter's name is Splinter, because Daredevil's like martial arts master is named Stick. So Splinter is a splinter off the stick.
Interesting.
And it's why the ninjas they fight are called the foot, because the ninjas that Daredevil fights are the hand.
Wow! You learned something in every episode of GameFace.
Yeah, it was all an homage / parody of the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff.
That is interesting.
And then someone noticed that like, oh, this thing sold out and did crazy, so we're going to pick it up and turn it into a kid-friendly franchise. And Eastman and Laird made a lot of money.
I bet.
That.
I mean, they still are. I'm guessing.
No, Eastman sold his stake in it to Laird in the 90s, and Laird sold his off to some other company. I think Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon owns them now.
Wow, that was a big mistake.
So he sold. I mean, they cashed in.
Maybe they're like me, and they're like, "Why is this thing so popular still?"
I mean, I've seen interviews where they pretty much say that, and like Eastman left fairly early because he didn't want to get stuck doing that forever for the rest of his life.
I can understand.
Laird stuck with it longer. Laird was into it more. But eventually he was. I mean, those guys are actually kind of old now. There's like it's time to cash in and not worry about these pizza eating turtles anymore. And it was all. I mean, they were so huge. Like you cannot. I mean, they defined the transition to the 90s really, and you cannot. There were all those like weird parodies and ripoffs, adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters, stuff like that, which actually got their own cartoon show, and there's a whole wave of like mutated animal heroes, Street Sharks, where Vin Diesel got his start.
Oh, right. They sparked off a revolution.
Yeah, biker mice from Mars, and a lot of that stuff did come from comic books. But yeah, it was Ninja Turtles really defined the transition to the 90s, off of the 80s stuff, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gem, all that. Ninja Turtles along with Power Rangers defined the early 90s stuff for kids. And I think part of that was a team. Like you had a multicolored team, and It's not a coincidence that Power Rangers is still going too. Like that formula just works.
It does work. And I also think that every kid can see themselves in one of the 4 characters. Yeah. They're like, that one's me. That one's me. No, this one's me. Like,
and I think one of the other things that helps, and you saw this a little bit in the original live action movie. That was another thing. Is
the live action movies
being
that are
a hit.
So bad.
that stuff broke out hard. Like the
I
fact the
know.
live action movie was a huge hit. Like no one expected that. Like I remember that it was a
shouldn't
big
have
shock.
been,
Because my dad was a giant movie fan, followed the industry all the time, got Daily Variety, the whole deal. And I remember him coming in when that thing swept at the box office. He's like, that stupid turtle thing you like won the box office this week. I don't know what the hell's going on. But the other thing that movie did a little bit, but more and more as you went forward, especially in the 2000s, they emphasized that the four of them are brothers. Like it's a cohesive family unit that splinters the father figure, and like April's sort of the sister best friend thing.
Yep.
And with Casey Jones in there as well. Like that's a big deal, and it's something that kids identify with very readily. And even older ones do. I mean, it's not a coincidence that one of the big themes through all the big blockbuster stuff, especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is the idea of chosen family, which is if you want to like bond with a millennial, chosen family is one of their big things because so many of them grew up in weird homes. And only found a place to fit when they grew up and got friends of their own.
Right.
That's why that's such a big deal in mass media right now. So the Turtles kind of were ahead of their game on that one, and I think that's good. Also, if we're talking about this video game, you can play 4 players, and it's fun.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is the Turtles always kind of impart themselves into pop culture. They break dance, they skateboard, they surf, they do.
Do you remember when they went on the concert tour?
That's right.
Coming out of their shells.
Yeah. It's really bizarre.
It's
but you know
very
what? It's
strange.
like this is an IP that if I'm a parent, I'm okay with my kids getting into it. Like I don't have an issue with it. There's really nothing controversial about it. It's
well, unless you're in the UK. Where they were, because back then the UK was not cool with ninjas. They thought ninjas were the gateway to all youth delinquency. And so the name of the show there had to be changed to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. And Michelangelo was never allowed to use his nunchucks, so they cut a lot of the nunchuck stuff because the nunchucks were outlawed there, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal with like street gangs were killing people with nunchucks or whatever. It was a big moral panic thing there, and that's why when it moved to the CBS, when it got really big, the syndicated thing moved to like the big time and all that. They started in the post first wave syndication. They started reanimating. Michelangelo never used his nunchucks again. He used a turtle themed grappling hook as his weapon,
crazy.
so that they could air it uncut in Europe.
Matt, I don't know if it was like this for where you went to school, but in the 80s, were ninja stars like a huge thing?
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah,
kids would bring
Everybody
them to
wanted
school.
ninja stars.
Kids would bring them to school, and they get suspended and thrown out.
Yep.
Like, everybody knew how to make these origami paper ninja stars. Did you? And like the crazy kids would put like stick pins in the end of them and like throw them and hit someone. It would stick in them, and then they get thrown out of school. Like it was like this thing where like the schools had to send out like a memo to parents being like, "Don't let your kids bring ninja stars to school." Like,
no, that all happened when I was in elementary school.
I didn't know if it was just like my area, but it was huge.
No, it was that wave of ninja cinema that it was
really weird.
The Shokasugi stuff, the Master Ninja stuff, Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja 3, The Domination, American Ninja, all that stuff. Like, that was the ninja boom of the 80s was a real thing, and that's one of the reasons that the Ninja Turtles were what they were.
And nunchucks. Nunchucks were like for your older brother who was in high school had the nunchucks. Like I had a ninja star, but like all the older kids on the school bus had the nunchucks. And sometimes they would hide them in their school bags and bring them to school. And like they just show them to you on the bus and be like, "Yeah, don't mess with me. I got the nunchucks." Like,
we had those.
A weird time to be alive.
And there were like kids who made their own out of their own sticks or like bamboo and shit. Like
chain.
It was just.
It's so funny, but that's the way it was.
There was one kid at school that he just had a bike lock chain that he took the plastic off and he called it a Kusari Fundo. And I was like, that's just a bike lock though. He's like, yeah, but it's the same thing, a weighted chain. I'm like, I guess. I don't,
It was funny, man. The stuff that we got into in the 80s. So
Michael Dudikoff has a lot to answer for. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, man. So anyway, there you go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge. It's coming to like everything. Like all platforms. There's no hard release date other than it's coming before the end of the year. But as Matt just mentioned, it is 4-player co-op. You can hack and slash your way through the game with bros, and of course it's going to be online, so you don't have to have people sitting next to you on the couch, which is a good thing as we're trying to work our way out of a frickin' pandemic. But I think this game's going to be huge, Matt. What say you?
Oh yeah, I think it'll be huge. Like there's no demographic really that this doesn't appeal to right now. It'll be a good play with your kids game.
Yeah.
It looks great. Like the trailer's great. I got nothing but love for this thing. Like it's a really good way to update things.
Andy T. Monahan says there's a classic South Park episode where Butters gets a ninja star in the eye.
Yeah.
It was a thing. It was
and
a
those
really
guys
weird
grew
thing.
up where I grew up. So yeah. So there's your proof that they lived it too.
And the funny thing is, like, those ninja stars were all crap. Like if you if you threw them, they wouldn't stick in anything. They just bounce off and like fly off into like the corner or whatever. Like,
well, I remember we had one kid who like got the fancy origami paper with the silver on the was so if he folded it right, it would look like a metal star. And he tried to like intimidate people with it. And we're like, that's paper. It was good times, really. It was, but like you're out of the school, recess. You just didn't know who was going to threaten you with weaponry. It was.
It's true. It's true. Okay, so we're going to go from Matt and I's childhood to the childhood of current children, and we're going to talk about Roblox. I think it's Roblox. Is that the way that you say it?
I mean, I've always heard it Roblox. Yeah.
So Roblox just went public on the stock exchange, and its stock right now is at like $70. It ended up at like 75 or 76. It's come down a little bit since its IPO.
GameStop money.
But exactly. But it's literally like worth like 5 times Bethesda and like 3 times Take-Two and like 8 times Ubisoft. Like it's insane the value of Roblox right now. And so I was like, what the hell is up with this thing? Like I knew what it was. I knew it was like a game creation tool that kids play and like, because all my nieces and nephews love it. And my sister and my brother talk about how their kids, they have to pull them away from Roblox every night and they'll cry and scream and blah, blah, blah. So I knew the basics of it, but I didn't know like the details about it. Like what is it about Roblox that would make it worth that amount of money? And so I did some investigation this week, Matt, and I'll be honest with you, I have no idea why it's worth that much money. It's basically Little Big Planet or Dreams for kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game creation tool, but really the difference, other than the fact that the tools are more simple and kids can kind of learn how to use them, is that you can make money from the stuff that you create. And that's where I think probably its valuation is high. I still don't quite understand why it's worth $75 a share or $70.
I mean, it's sort of, that's why it's high because it's a universally loved kids thing and nobody understands why those universally loved kids, much like Ninja Turtles, no one understands why this weird thing is suddenly super popular, but they know there's probably money to be made there, so they're going to invest in it. And that's why because all the stock stuff, as we know, is mostly imaginary. So if people believe it's valuable, it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I mean, that's really what stocks are.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, honestly, if you want a pretty good primer in how nonsensical, but more or less how it works, go watch Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, really?
Where they, you ever seen that?
Yes, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So at the end where they do the whole short sell stock thing, now they do that was done in 82. So they do it on the floor with paper and yelling and people are screaming and there's a news broadcast. Everybody stops and watches. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's all computerized. But what they do in the climax of that movie is pretty much what happened to GameStop.
Yeah.
It's roughly the same idea. So it's fascinating because at one point Dan Aykroyd's character explains what they're doing. And it's a pretty good primer on how all this stuff is imaginary. And if you really know how it works and if you have your timing is perfect and your luck's in, you can manipulate it to your advantage. So there's always some of that happening here. Is Roblox really worth that $70 a share? Right now it is.
Yeah, if it's imaginary, then sure it is.
Yeah. And it's also key to remember that like, stock value has very little real world significance to the operation of the company. Like I had friends who were worried that like when GameStop stock went back down to where it went, like everybody who worked at GameStop would lose their jobs because the company would crash.
That's not how it works.
No, it's like the company's going to go on the way it has the whole time. Like nothing is going to change on the ground level of this. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, exactly.
It's like if you watch like Apple stock, this happens every time.
Yeah.
Apple issues its quarterly report and they're like, we killed it. Oh my God, like we made like 3 times what the analysts said we were going to make. We destroyed every metric and their stock tanks. It's like, what the hell? Like you're right. Like the performance has really nothing to do with how a stock performs. My question though is Roblox something that's going to generate the kind of revenue that a Ubisoft or a Take-Two or an EA is bigger than EA or an EA is going to generate? Like I just don't understand how you're right, it's imaginary, but people do imagine in their minds that this company's going to make a lot of money, and that's why I'm going to buy its stock.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is because, like, look, I don't have a friend with a kid who hasn't talked to me about Roblox.
Yeah, me either.
They're like,
all my nieces and nephews.
And that can have an influence. If these people, these guys don't understand. They don't follow games, they don't follow toy stuff, they don't follow anything. But they've heard every kid they know and every kid their kid knows say Roblox.
Or so like, they've already put their credit card into Roblox, so their kids can buy stuff. They probably spend a lot of money
on Roblox. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're spending money on it, so they're like, everybody else must be spending money on it.
Right.
But when you dig into it, it is literally a big pile of crap.
Right, but the advantage here is that most of the people investing in this are never going to play it.
Matt, I think I couldn't even get B-roll for this. Like, because there's nothing. It's just one broken thing after another. And, like, their curation is, like, as bad as, like, the Switch eShop. Like, getting the good stuff to bubble up to the top. Like, what a 5-year-old kid thinks is cool is, like, a thing where you just like pet a dog, and then the hearts go up from the dog's head. Like it's so. I will
say that I don't know how much contact you have. Probably no contact because of the pandemic, but like contact with Gen Z kids.
Yeah,
like much. my niece who's like about to turn 13. Their humor is different.
As in not funny.
No, the thing is they are funny, but they're not anything I would ever come up with. But I think they are closest in tone and attitude, maybe as a generation too, to like us, the Gen X point of view. Like that is one reason I think they have so much friction with the millennials right now. Is like millennials have this, the meme is that like the millennials are like, it's like, the millennials are walking around depressed, like, oh, nothing matters and everything's terrible. And the Gen Z kids are like, everything's terrible and nothing matters. Like, it's like to them, it's freeing, it's like right. they're nihilistic, but they like know that they can do whatever they want.
But they look at it from a different perspective.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. And a lot of their humor is like the current thing, the argument now is Gen Z going like, oh, center parts only. Like side parts are terrible.
Yeah, I heard about that. What the hell is that?
From my informants in the Gen Z, from my informants in the Gen Z community, that is almost entirely a gag. Like they just to like
make fun of their parents who have a side part or whatever.
Right. Well, that's the thing is like they're sort of taking advantage of this idea that they're like, oh, millennials still care what 17-year-olds think of them, even though they're 32. So we're going to fuck with that.
They're trolling
real hard.
That's funny.
They're trolling, but they're trolling like at a younger age than you think someone would troll someone that much older than them. Like they grew up in the internet. They have shit posting in their veins.
I mean, like, they've had a phone in their hand since they were 4.
We as well. Like Gen X raised a lot of these kids.
Yeah.
We have created this
Monsters.
New creature, and we have no idea what it's going to do next, but I bet it'll be hilarious. If you watch a lot of TikTok stuff from the younger kids, their sense of timing and sense of humor is A, on point, and B, different.
Interesting.
And like, I don't know how to describe, but it's like how when you saw South Park for the first time, and you're like, this isn't like anything else. Mm-hmm. Like I see the influences, but it's like something's different here. Or when you watch like Space Ghost Coast to Coast for the first time, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like that's the feeling I get when I watch some or see some of the jokes my niece tells me or think. It's just like that. And like I've had to readjust on my expectation. I'm like, okay, so I can send you some real weird shit and you'll just sort of absorb it. Like it's like I don't need to worry about getting too meta. We're talking about a girl who, when she plays Civilization 6, does historical research on the figures in that she's her computer opponents in the game in the real world, so she can insult them better when she like makes up stories about how she killed like Attila the Hun and stuff.
I think your niece is too old, honestly, for the Roblox crowd. Like all my nieces and nephews, they're like 5 to like 9 or 10.
She's a little old, but she knew of it. Like Roblox has been around a long time.
It has.
Like, Roblox has been around a while.
Yeah,
like she knew of the Roblox. She didn't really care about it because by that age she was already into actual electronics and programming. But like all my other friends who have kids who are like 8 or 9, like they've been into Roblox for like 5 years.
Now, Matt, why do you think Roblox has kind of hit this sweet spot, but other games like Dreams or Little Big Planet never really kind of got over the hump?
I mean, Roblox is on everything and it's very accessible, and they had like actual physical merchandise in stores pushing it. I think that was all the key to it. Dreams and Little Big Planet are both trapped on one platform. Little Big Planet's creative level stuff is absurdly complex. Like kids could not do that.
I mean, have you looked at the tools in Roblox? Like I checked them out and like they're not that simple.
Well, for kids who grew up in Minecraft, like they're a natural like sidestep.
Like Minecraft is easy. Like this actually has like scripts and things like that.
So does Minecraft if you want to build them that way.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like Roblox actually does streamline some of what Minecraft can do brute force if you're interested in that kind of programming through the kind of visual object stuff.
There's a language that Roblox is in. It's called
a lot of kids sidestepped into that. And I mean, I'm just telling you what's the facts here.
Yeah.
Like this is what they've said to me.
Okay.
Like I've never played Roblox, but I know what they like it, and that's what they say, or at least what their parents say they said. Like to them, it's not that complicated, but like something like Dreams probably wouldn't be. But they don't know what Dreams is because they don't all have PlayStation 4s.
Right.
They do have mobile phones. Like part of a lot of it's accessibility. Like Roblox is just ubiquitous, and Dreams and Little Big Planet, frankly, are not.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right. Like my nieces and nephews will play it on the iPad. They'll play it on the PC. They'll play it on their cell phones. And you're right. Dreams is just on a console. I'm surprised though that it hasn't taken off more than it has, based upon how popular Roblox is. To be honest.
I mean, part of it is there's nothing to tell you Dreams exists. And obviously that's not a factor so much anymore because of the pandemic, but you just see Roblox sitting around in a toy store or department store or whatever, and it would catch the kid's eye and they'd get into it. Like that's sort of how it works. Dreams has nothing equivalent. You have to basically accidentally hear about it from a friend or like dig through the PSN store and find it. Like how would you hear about Dreams? They don't advertise it. It's not on billboards or buses or TV commercials. Like Dreams is almost entirely word of mouth. For an older audience, for the most part, like you basically discovered Dreams through. I mean, I discovered Dreams through knowing someone who works on it. Like it's not a, and it should be bigger. Like you're right, it should be more known because there's stuff going on in that game that no one is aware of. That how amazing. There's stuff that I could show you. We could show you videos of stuff from Dreams you would never guess was made in Dreams.
Right. Yeah.
Like
but every time I see something made in Roblox, I know it was made in Roblox.
Right. Roblox is a very specific set of building tools. Yeah, you're right.
The animation's crap. Like everything about it is just crap.
But like that's kind of the joke.
Thing, I guess.
That's kind of the thing. Like it's kind of the thing is like it's hard to explain, and like you either get it or you don't. I don't really get it, but I understand what they're doing. I don't get it in terms of Roblox, but I've gotten things like that. It's like, why were we so into garbage pail kids? It's stupid. They're stupid. Like it was ridiculous. Or homies, or like fucking jelly bracelets. Who gave a shit about? Why do we care about jelly bracelets? But that was a big deal for a long time. Why do we care about ninja stars?
Yeah, like, that's a good point.
You will about Roblox, but they can't kill anybody.
Yeah, I was just, I'll be honest, I was disappointed to see that all my nieces and nephews were falling for just garbage. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I expected it to be more like a Disney Infinity Skylanders thing, and it's just more of a rudimentary construction tool.
And it's just junk. It's like most of the games, it's like the character does one thing, like he just flies up into the sky and it's over. Like that's all it is.
I mean, what it is basically like a game where you build your own fidget spinner.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Matt. That is based upon my 2 days worth of kind of sorting through all the crap. That's pretty much what it was. Like really short experiences, or a lot of the popular stuff was like, let's go to a pizza shop and choose like the stuff that I want to put on my pizza, or let's go to like the animal shelter and pick out the dog that I want to rescue. And you just walk in a room and there's like 5 horribly animated dogs that kind of look like dogs on a counter, and you pick one and it goes ruff ruff, and that's it. Like that's like, I was just like, man, this is what's captivating the kids.
You know, these are 8-9-year-olds expressing themselves through this. Like that's a thing that, you know, it probably took them days to make that, but like that's a thing. It's a thing they captured and did, and it's a short hop from that to like programming classes.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I like that the kids are interested in this at all.
Oh yeah,
it's better than a lot of million other things that could have been.
Yeah, I don't think
like
you're
taking
selfies
of themselves or whatever and being narcissistic. So being creative, that is good. I like that my nieces and nephews are kind of dipping their toes into that kind of stuff, and like you said, dipping their toes into programming and art and all these other parts that go into making games. So
yeah, like I don't think they're still gonna be playing Roblox when they're in college.
Yeah,
not like Pokemon kind of thing. You know, like
maybe that's what Dreams should be doing, is trying to figure out a way to graduate the kids from something like Roblox into Dreams. And maybe that's what their target should be and what they should be doing, instead of trying to get people like us who have jobs and are busy, and maybe we have kids. We're probably not the people they should be promoting stuff like Dreams to. You agree with that?
Maybe. I mean, I think Dreams is appealing to anyone, like, because I don't make stuff in Dreams.
Mass market,
I just go and play it.
Successful though.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, they seem to be doing okay for what they expect themselves to be. I would just like to see Sony promote it a little more readily. Yeah. Like, I don't know, you know, if I guess you'd probably need an excuse for some big update or something. But it doesn't seem wrong. I mean, but I also don't know where you do that. Like, you're not going to buy a Super Bowl ad for Dreams. But that's the thing, is like, there's nothing in stores or whatever to sort of promote it the way Roblox has these sort of tie-in things. Or Fortnite, even, for that matter. Fortnite has action figures now.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Fortnite here in a bit. They're doing some crazy stuff in Fortnite right now.
Yeah, no. I mean, in terms of like the value of Roblox, like it's just one of those, like, you know, it's hot and everybody talked about it, or I've heard my kids all talk about it. IPO things where they think, you know, maybe there's money to be made here, and if there is, we'll make it, and if not, it'll go away. We'll move on to the next thing. It's just the stock market being the stock market.
Yep. So anyway, that's Roblox. I jumped on the grenade for y'all. If you were wondering, like, what's going on with this, why is it so popular? Now you know why it's popular, kind of. I still don't know why it's that popular, to be perfectly honest with you.
I just think it fills that niche of like kind of that stepping stone building / programming thing that nothing else does. I mean, there's probably like, you know, educational software you could get that does similar things, but like Roblox is already popular. And if you do make a thing, I think part of the key is like, if you make a dumb thing where you get to go into a pet shop and pick a dog, like, you can then have all your friends play it.
Well, they said that some kids have made almost $1 million off of their goofy little games. And the other thing too is that they make their money off of microtransactions, which I thought was a little slimy. You're just getting those kids in there right in the door of the microtransaction world, preparing them for whenever they want to play, which our next topic is FIFA Ultimate Team. You're just preparing them for the cha-ching to come. And that actually transitions nicely into our next topic, which is EA Gate, which I think might be a little bit overstated. Usually when something is called whatever gate, it's actually a big deal that everyone should be paying attention to. I would argue that is not the case with EA Gate. And if it were not a slower week, GameFace would probably not be talking about EA Gate. But it is a slow week, and this is one of the biggest stories of the week. In fact, if you look at a lot of the commentary stuff on YouTube, pretty much every single one of them has done something on this already, including Jim Sterling. And essentially what happened is an EA employee was caught selling FIFA Ultimate Team items on an illegal black market. So these cards, these rare items that you either have to earn because you're opening packs, you're buying packs and opening them like Pokemon cards, and you're hoping that you get this rare. Someone working at EA who has readily access to these types of items was going onto this illegal black market and selling them to people and got caught. First of all, Matt, is there any way to stop this from happening? I mean, I'm surprised he got caught. Are you?
I mean, I don't know what their protocol is with that, but I would imagine that you're generating those items. There'd be some way to find out that that's happening, like that you wouldn't be able to control as that person. You'll require someone to look at it and notice it, but all that stuff clearly has some kind of a record for it. And I guess the solution is to have more than one person watchdogging that, because otherwise the watchdog might start selling things on the black market.
Now, EA said that...
Who watches the watchman?
Yeah, so obviously the big concern is that does it throw off the balance of the game for the people who are out there grinding, trying to get these items, get these cards, these players, these kits, all the kind of stuff that you get from Ultimate Team. Does it throw the balance off? And EA said that like the type of cards that this person was selling represents like 0.006% of all the cards in Ultimate Team. So EA is not all that concerned about it throwing off the balance for people who are participating in it.
There's no way that this was happening in the volume required to shift the actual balance of the overall game.
Yeah. How do you feel about paying lots of money for stuff like that?
I mean, I think it's dumb, but if you want to do it, it's your money. You know, we're going to talk about something similar later in the show.
We are. Yeah, absolutely. But Matt, do you think that this is kind of a byproduct of things like Ultimate Team and microtransactions that is just going to send kids down this path where they're doing stuff like this?
Well, I don't think these are kids doing it. I think these are adults doing this.
I'm talking about the kids that want the stuff so badly that it generates a black market for it, so that people like the criminal at EA starts injecting these black markets with the stuff that the kids are hoping for, asking for.
Like what?
Well, these cards. Like if the kids weren't so addicted to Ultimate Team,
I don't think these are kids. I think they're adults buying these.
That are on the black markets buying the stuff.
Of course, yeah.
I guess like maybe
where do you think
kids.
they have?
Like
when
I say kids, I'm not talking about like 5 or 6 year olds. I'm talking about like a 13-year-old whose parents are like, sure, here's our card.
And I'm talking about the people doing this are probably in their 30s.
Really?
They're the ones with the income to burn, and they're the ones that like get weirdly competitive about shit. Yeah.
Huh. I'm surprised that you would think that. To me,
I'm surprised you would think the other way, because kids don't have that kind of money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's the kids who get their parents to just give them a credit card because the parents use FIFA as the babysitter, so they don't have to get a real babysitter.
No, I mean, probably some teenagers doing that, but I think the majority of people I see throwing tons of money at mobile games, microtransactions, and weird stuff like that are all in their late 20s, early 30s.
Doesn't it seem like EA should be able to police this very easily? Shouldn't there be some kind of a digital fingerprint or something, and some kind of an accounting of that digital fingerprint that says this is where it came from, it's either legitimate or it's not, it's either been issued legitimately or it hasn't been, and if it hasn't been, there should be some kind of a filter in place that says, no, this is an illegal card or kit or whatever, and it should just stop.
I mean, you could build that system, but it feels like a kind of a lot of waste of money and time for something that's only going to happen very infrequently, and only if an employee decides to risk their job at doing that.
I'm talking more just about the black markets in general, not this particular case where an EA employee was the one who was kind of injecting.
Well, I'm not sure what the black market would be able to be without an inside contact.
Well, no, people have been trying to sell their legitimate cards on these black markets. Like, a lot of people just sell legit ones that haven't been sort of obtained in some sneaky or weird way.
Well, I don't know how that is. You trade cards or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, is that anyway? Well, there's no way to stop that, no. Like, if you're going to use if you legitimately have the valuable card and you want to, go outside the game and take somebody's money and then trade them the card inside the game, like nothing, theoretically that's against the EULA if you have a thing that says, you're not allowed to sell this stuff for money. But how you can't track that. Like you can't,
I guess what I'm getting at is
they haven't done anything directly against the game's rules in the game. So you'd basically you'd have to have a separate like kind of EA Interpol task force just tracking down people selling outside, and that's just secondary market shit. That happens with everything. Happens with comic books, happens with real trading cards, happens with Pokemon cards. That's the same thing. To me, it's the same thing as paying $350,000 for a Charizard. It's a ridiculous price and it's a ridiculous practice. But secondary market value is a thing, and it's going to happen even with digital stuff.
If Ultimate Team didn't exist for FIFA or for Madden or for NHL or any of EA sports games, then it's the root of the problem. And if it didn't exist, then these black markets wouldn't emerge and none of this stuff would be happening. You wouldn't have kids spending, and again, kids 13.
You don't
18.
have kids doing that. It's adults. Kids aren't doing that. People aren't spending thousands. Kids aren't spending thousands of dollars on FIFA cards on the black market. Adults are like that. These are people with jobs and people with income. Some of them are kids, but I'm sure like you got these like weird, if your kid's making $1 million a year on Roblox, maybe you are spending that much on FIFA cards in your spare time. But I guess if you take away the thing you use the card in, the black market for that thing goes away because there's no thing. But like that happens with everything that is rare and gives you an advantage in a competitive anything.
And look, I know EA is never going to end it because they make more money off of Ultimate Team than they do off the sales of the game.
The only thing EA would do in response to this in the long term, I think, would be to shift the cards to the NFT model, like we've been seeing with this like art laundering thing that's been going on, so that they can sell stuff for inflated secondary market prices themselves. Like if you make the cards identifiable individual electronic non-duplicatable objects, like with this NFT thing, then EA can put things up like that on the market and see what they sell for. And you've got a real money auction house on your hands.
That's going the other direction, Matt. I'm trying to figure out a way we can go the other direction. But truth is, it's just not going to happen because EA makes way too much money.
That's how reality works. Like that's like I said, like that's how comic book works. Anything that is a rarity or is in demand, or especially like with the Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Magic card, that Black Lotus Magic card has been out of print since the 90s, but you can still spend tens of thousands of dollars on it because it's still a good card in a competition. That's just how it works. And if there's a card in these games that people think is going to give them an advantage, someone is going to pay a premium to not have to go through in the end, because like a lot of times the price for that kind of thing isn't just calculated by how valuable the card is in terms of competition. It's calculated by how much money you'd spend trying to get it legitimately.
Oh, I get it. I totally understand it. But I'm saying, like, why does this need to exist inside a video game other than a way to squeeze more money out of the consumer is my point. And I feel like things like Ultimate Team have trickled down to create these environments where you have people involved in these black markets. And in all honesty, if it wasn't for Ultimate Team, you probably don't have like the whole microtransaction system in a game like Roblox, because it becomes normalized by companies like EA, and it makes other publishers feel like, well, they're doing it, then it's okay. Next thing you know, you have microtransactions everywhere, and not all of them are bad, but sometimes they do end up in dark places like these black markets where people are getting, I don't know. It just. I just don't see what you're talking about with the black market being a weird dark place. It's just eBay, basically. It's an illegal eBay. Because you're not. Here's the thing: EA does not condone the reselling of cards.
They don't condone it, but I don't think that makes it illegal. Like, I don't think that's an illegal act. I think it's just against the rules of the game you sign when you agree to go online. That's not the same as illegal.
Yeah, you're not going to
ban you from the game if they found out, but you're not going to go to jail for it. Like, that's not illegal. So like, it's just the nature of the game. Like, if they can find a way to make, you could take trading out of the game. Like, that's about it. Like, if you can find a way to make it so players cannot trade cards with each other, that's basically the only way to stop that.
Yeah, and maybe that is what they need to do.
I don't think they need to do anything, frankly. I think it doesn't matter.
You don't think there's a problem with it at all?
I have a problem with a guy who works at EA, like making money for himself, selling, internally generated rare cards. Like, that's shady. But in terms of like, if there's a way to sell this thing and trade it over to something like I don't care. Like, Like, I don't see what the harm is there really, other than taking advantage of people with too much money more money than sense. Like, they know what they're getting. Like, EA is not having anything stolen from it.
I mean, there's a reason that there are agencies like the Consumer Protection Agency, because some people need to be saved from themselves. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, but this is not. I mean, EA's problem with this is that that's money they're not getting.
Yeah, they're not getting
and that's
the money
end
for
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why EA hasn't done that. Why hasn't EA not created its own marketplace for it?
Why
haven't a lot of publishers
done
that?
Like,
because this is a problem with like gold and MMOs.
If you do that, even if you do that, it's going to still be cheaper to go through an outside source, because then EA will not take a cut from the sale.
That's a good point. You would think if you made a decent marketplace, like even if you're talking about like MMOs and gold and stuff like that, I mean, you could shut down these sweatshops that have people working like 80-hour weeks grinding gold in MMORPGs.
Yeah, but they don't, and you can't. That's the key. Like, that still happens. It happens all the time, and you can still go out and buy.
You can, but look, if it's built into the game, like only a percentage of people, I think, are going to go outside of that ecosystem. Like, it would cut down on it a lot.
That's the iTunes theory. If you make it easier to get it legitimately or in-house, people will stop going to pirate things, because the pirate stuff is more inconvenient than just getting it through the proper channels. Which I guess is possible, but like, if EA goes through the trouble to make that in those games, I think they just open a whole nother can of worms where people are saying they're exploiting the player base for, because it's like, well, if you think that's so valuable, why don't you just like put more of those cards in the mix, and then that value goes down and people don't have to pay as much for it. Because that's the thing, is like, it's an artificial scarcity thing if they start taking advantage of the secondary market themselves.
Another analogy might be like weed legalization. For instance, like in California, it's like when it was getting ready to happen, people were like, oh, no one's going to go to those dispensaries or whatever because the prices are going to be like higher. And, why would somebody go in when they already have someone they're getting it? Well, if you drive around LA, you see the lines outside of the dispensaries. Like, that hasn't stopped anyone. I mean, the other part of it, too, is that maybe people are like, well, I feel safer coming here than going on the black market.
So what you're saying is, if we opened a shop that just sells black market FIFA cards.
No. I'm saying if you had an official shop that is like governed by an official agency like EA.
Don't forget,
if it's EA's shop.
Don't forget, like, that's what I'm saying. The dispensary thing isn't a very good analogy then, because it's still federally illegal and there is no supervisory body for that.
It's regulated.
Regulated by the state level, but it's still illegal on the national level. Yeah. No one's going to come after you for it, but like, it's an even more illegal thing than selling a FIFA card. No,
that's not what I was getting at, though. I was just talking about culturally how people think, and they're like, I feel like I'm safer coming here than getting it from somebody on the street, and I'm willing to even pay a little more for it here. To your point about EA taking its cut, I'm willing to pay a little more for it here, knowing that I'm safe. Because the other part of this is the people who bought this stuff from that guy at EA, their accounts are getting banned for good. So going to jail, so to speak. That's the analogy I was getting at, not the legality or illegality of it, just the risk-reward of it.
I just don't think the black market thing matters at all. I think the gate here, EA gate or whatever you want, it's more of an EA whitewater. It's not a big deal really. The scandal here is that someone who worked at EA was feeding the black market, illicitly generated card keys, basically.
Laced weed.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he was growing his own whatever. He's growing his own rare cards. I wish I knew enough about soccer to pick a popular player or something and say it.
Neymar, Messi.
Sure. But like, he's growing his own Man U cards, and it's not okay. I don't know. I don't even know if they're in FIFA. I have no fucking idea. Yeah. But the black market's always going to exist in that regard. You
can make it smaller, though, I think. And I think EA should probably just take it over itself and establish its own. that's probably the only answer, because we know EA is not going to get rid of the cards because
No,
they make
the
too much
cards
money.
are the cards are lucrative whether you go after the black market or not. Like, they're already making money off of it because they probably don't even mind the black market that much, because outside of what this guy was doing, anything being sold on the black market was already bought from EA. So who gives a shit what they do with it?
Or earned by playing the game. Yeah.
Right. Like, EA already benefited from everything that's on that black market. So it's just, to me, it's not really any different than reselling a Funko Pop for more money than you paid for it. It's, it's scalping to some degree, but like, it's not hurting anybody unless you're ripping people off, and that's a different issue.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people would argue scalpers do rip you off.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's an avid concert goer, I would argue I've been ripped off many times by scalpers.
Well, the concert, I mean, like, it's hard. It's funny because, like, I will, if I can't get a toy or an object or whatever, at retail, I will pay a higher, scalped price if I have to, if I don't think there's any other way to get it.
eBay's entire business is scalping.
But I have a harder time doing that with, like, tickets for something, because I always feel like putting a price on that experience is a harder sell for me. I was like,
there's no appreciation for event tickets. It's like if you buy something and you've owned it, you've had it for 20 years and you've held it, and its value appreciates, that's one thing. Concert tickets aren't like that. That's not how it works.
Like, or even like tickets for anything. It's just like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to see Hamilton another time.
Right.
Like, I don't need to pay $1,500 for this ticket. Yep. Whereas, like, and also, that's not so much anymore, because Broadway finally figured out they can just charge $500 for good seats and not let everybody else. There's a good analogy for this.
That's true.
Because for a long time, Broadway tickets used to cost like, $30, $50, $70 for orchestra. And like, people would turn around and sell tickets to Hamilton second row center for like $500,000 a piece. And like, somewhere around when Hamilton started to blow up, Broadway was like,
why aren't we charging that?
Just charged $500 a ticket? What if people will pay it? So why don't we just charge it? So they did, and now it's much harder to pay for good seats at Broadway. But the theaters make a lot more money.
Yeah.
Which means that is obviously a lot easier than building a digital marketplace for your sports games. Yep. But it's a thing that will always exist one way or the other. People will always, if you have a desire for a thing that is in short supply, someone will sell it to you for a premium.
That's true. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Fortnite. We don't talk about Fortnite very often, only when there's like a huge paradigm shift with the game. And this week, there is a huge paradigm shift for the game. Although it feels
this is
like
about Chun-Li's ass.
Well, here's the thing about Fortnite. So it started out.
That's the only thing I saw about Fortnite in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, really?
They put out the costume of her in the training outfit from like Street Fighter Alpha, and the character model. Someone paid a lot of attention to her lower half over at Epic.
Interesting.
So,
well, we know people who work there, so maybe our friends who are the guilty
I
party.
Call Seth and be like, "Dude, was that you?"
I'll say this: it is funny. Anytime something happens,
parameters over there.
I don't know if you do this, Matt, but anytime something happens with Fortnite, I always wonder if it's one of our friends who was like behind it. Do you
Every
do that?
once in a while, I see stuff where I'm just like, that. I mean, like there's, I know
we have
that
so many friends that work there that we're just like, it could be one of them. Like, totally.
Also, like sometimes, like this current thing, the 0 point thing, I'm like, is that Hoffman?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Hoffman likes stuff like, I know Hoffman knows sci-fi concepts. I mean, I know he's not the only one. Like, there's a lot of nerds over here, all the places we know, that all these places that people work at. But like, something about this storyline screams Jeremy Hoffman to me, and I'm like, was he in a meeting? Did he suggest something, and this is how it ended up? Like, I don't know. I'm suspicious.
Well, Fortnite is crazy because it started out as like primarily a single player experience, and it was really just about building your fort. It was like basically a tower defense game.
Really, yeah,
you built your fort, you got attacked, and you tried to survive the night. And then it morphed into this battle royale phenomenon, which is what most people know it for, and how it really blew up.
Which was basically put in as like a one-off sort of like on a lark, hey, we made this sort of mode.
Yeah, like hey, here's this thing that we fiddled around with. What do you guys think? And people were like, oh my gosh, it's like groundbreaking. And then it, obviously spawned things like Call of Duty Warzone and all these other clones, Apex Legends, all of it.
Yeah, the point that no one even remembers it was PUBG.
It's true. Originally. Exactly. PUBG is really the one that started it. And
yeah, like when Fortnite's, this mode came out, everyone was like, oh, we made our own PUBG.
Yeah.
Like that was the point. Like
yeah,
we made
now
a PUBG
PUBG's
mode.
like one of the small players. If you think about it, it's been
And
eclipsed
PUBG
by like
has
4 other games.
And PUBG has a Dead Space clone coming out. So
right. Yeah, exactly.
Life's weird.
Well, now Fortnite has come full circle, and the new season of Fortnite is kicked off by a single player element where you play it by yourself without anyone else. It's called, what is the name of it? It's chapter or season 6, chapter 2. Like I can't even keep track of the crap anymore.
I don't remember what number we're on there.
It's like the way that they name everything. It's hard to even keep track of it anymore. But it is a single player experience. And finally, it appears that Epic has decided that the blonde-haired dude is in fact the main character of Fortnite. He stars in this thing. This is a trailer for it. What do they call him? His name is... what is it? Oh, Agent Jones, apparently, is the blonde guy's name. He is now the star of Fortnite, and that's important because this is a single-player only kind of kickoff to the new season. Now, the new season itself is typical Fortnite. It's you playing Battle Royale, and they release skins throughout the whole season, but they're starting to tie the skins into single-player content, and that's the trailer that we're seeing right now. When was the last time you played Fortnite, Matt? When it came out?
I don't know. I think I don't remember.
Well, we're
years.
What it is
years ago.
We're starting to see the master plan of Fortnite coming together because throughout the year they release all these skins, and you're seeing them in this trailer right now. You're seeing the Terminator, you're seeing Kratos, you're seeing.
I mean, I appreciate all this. I love that. Like they're like Funko
Ryu.
Pops. They just license everything. I saw a clip of like aliens running around with Ripley shooting things with machine guns. It's hilarious.
Master Chief. They're all in this one cinematic. I mean, it's really amazing.
Star Wars stuff. It's the only place you'll ever get Marvel versus DC.
It's crazy.
In a video game.
What Epic has managed to pull off with these IP, these IP.
Because it's more valuable to them to be in that game than to not be seen alongside their competition, which is so rare.
I mean, you just saw Ryu throw a fireball at Master Chief.
Like if you, all you need to do to illustrate how powerful and all-encompassing Fortnite is to say Marvel and DC let their characters be seen on the same screen together.
Yes, it's unreal.
That's it.
All these properties, though, you just saw Kratos and Master Chief in the same frame. Like, no, that's never been done before. And now we're starting to see why, because they're starting to tie all these characters together into single-player, story-driven content. And that's exactly how the new Fortnite season kicks off. There's a very short campaign that you get to play through.
Yeah, and they flirted with this before, the Galactus thing, the thing where the robot came to life after the whole season and fought the kaiju and changed the map.
But it's all team-based. Like, you're playing with everybody else who's playing Fortnite.
Right, but like they've toyed with the whole narrative thing before, kind of affecting how the team-based game works. This feels like a very natural next step into kind of making Fortnite something everybody wants to play, even if they're not into multiplayer stuff.
Yeah, but, well, here's the thing, Matt. It's kind of a bait and switch or a Trojan horse, as it were. Because
for now.
Do you think that this is something that they're going to expand upon? Because
I mean, I'm sure it depends on whether how their feedback goes on it. But if there's an interest shown in kind of making this having character-driven elements to this game going forward, I'm sure we'll see more of it as we go forward. Like Fortnite's strength, Epic's strength on Fortnite has been its ability and willingness to respond in almost real time to what the audience wants.
Yep. So this campaign is only about 8 minutes long. You can't die. It's basically just a cinematic that you run around through. It's not like gameplay intensive. You play as Lara Croft through most of it. And it's really, here's how insignificant it is though, Matt. They posted the gameplay walkthrough on their YouTube channel. The whole thing. They're like, don't have to play it if you don't want to. You can just watch it if you want to. So how much significance do you think it really has? Or do you think that the players of Fortnite even care? Are they just wrapped up in this world and they're cool with just seeing all these different characters in one sort of like pop culture experience?
I don't know. I'm sure that's part of it. This seems like a test balloon to me. Just like put it up, see how many people play it, and putting it on the YouTube channel is pretty smart because then you're like, okay, our control on this is that if you want to see it, you can just watch it on the YouTube channel. But if someone goes, so if someone goes and plays it, they were actively interested in playing this kind of content. So you get actually a more, I think you get actually a more useful metric from that by doing that.
What do you think? Do you think more people will play it or more people will watch it?
I have no idea. I don't really know anything about the Fortnite audience at this point, so I really don't know what they'll pick. My guess is that most of them won't notice, but I don't know how high engagement is for the Fortnite audience with like all their social media and kind of their one-off stuff. But I have to imagine it's pretty big because they follow that stuff to find out what new characters and skins are coming. So maybe, I don't know. I don't even have a guess at that. But they must have made this for a reason. So
yeah, I would venture to guess more people would play it because I think people will figure out it's not that long. And they'll be like, I might as well just play through it instead of going to YouTube and watch it. But I don't know, because the Fortnite audience is honestly different from any audience that I'm familiar with, because I'm not a Fortnite player. They will go there and they will watch like a virtual concert with everybody else in the world. I just wonder if the fact that you're not with other people, if that's a detriment to the Fortnite fan.
I don't think it necessarily matters. Like I said, that kaiju thing with the robot, that was not multiplayer. I mean, you could be in there with other people, but you couldn't kill each other or fight each other. You're just all standing there watching it happen.
Yeah, it was non-interactive. Yeah, it was just a thing that you watched.
So, if they want to see the next chapter of that or whatever, I don't know how narrative intensive the world of Fortnite has become. Seems like they're trying to push it in a direction, because it seems like, they've already got action figures and stuff like that. It feels like your next step on this would probably be like animated series or, that kind of thing. Someone's got to be talking about a Fortnite movie in the hallways of Epic somewhere. And you got to have Agent Jones for that, I guess.
The chat is all like, they're obviously not huge Fortnite players either, because we're all a little bit older, and they're all like, what the F? Because it's crazy. I mean, you're just seeing like every like pop culture icon in like the frame at once, and it just, I don't know. I mean, it seems cheap to me in a way to sell skins. I mean, I guess that's how I look at this, is like Epic has figured out a way to sell skins by, getting all these pop culture icons into the game, getting people to pay for them, and now this is just kind of their cheap payoff or cheap way to rationalize what they've been doing with all these characters. It doesn't make any sense. The narrative doesn't make sense, although hardcore Fortnite players, they're grasping at straws trying to figure out how.
It reminds me of the cheap narrative trick that DC and Marvel pulled for their DC versus Marvel miniseries in the 90s.
Yeah.
Which made no sense, but the point was to get the DC Marvel characters fighting each other, so no one cared. Like it was just to get you there. And if they want to do that here, fine. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the people, maybe even Hoffman, in the depths of Epic, are thinking of that DC versus Marvel series and saying we could do something like that, because the DC versus Marvel series got very cosmic meta as well. Like there's some quantum mechanics happening there too.
For example, Vincent just mentioned in chat, the big new skin for this season is Lara Croft. And also, I think Neymar, actually the soccer player, is like the other big one.
Oh, no, okay.
Which is weird. But
I thought you said Namor, the Submariner. I was just like, really?
No, Neymar, that's the soccer player.
Deep Marvel cut.
No, Neymar's even weirder, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like a soccer, what? I mean, I get internationally, they'll probably sell 1 billion of them or whatever, because everybody loves Neymar. But
is there a Tom Brady? Can you be Tom Brady?
I don't think you can. There's an NFL crossover, but I don't think it's like you can be specific players. I think you can just wear the uniform,
the jersey,
of your favorite team, on your existing character that you create, I believe. But
if you offer a Gronk character that just yells Gronk, I might buy that.
And just spikes shit like really hard.
It spikes up and goes Gronk like that.
I might buy that, Matt. I might actually buy that.
I'd like to fight a team just of that.
Gronks.
Just Gronk.
That's pretty funny. But so
there's your next single player narrative thing. It's a waves of Gronks coming at you.
So Lara is the big skin for this season, and you play as her in this like single player thing. So they're definitely trying to move skins with this stuff. It feels a little bit like putting the cart before the horse. They're like, we're getting all these skins, we need to sell them. How can we rationalize it? Oh, let's come up with this flimsy narrative that we can try to make it seem like it was all part of a master plan.
Sort of. I mean, it's also kind of like a demo for the skin.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. It shows it off for sure.
And like to some degree, Lara might need that more than like, the Mandalorian. Like it's maybe a harder sell in the sense that like she's not really pop culture hot right now. But it's, that's fine if you want to do a little 8-minute, 10-minute like playable thing for each of the new licensed skins you do now. That's pretty cool. Like that'd be a nice thing to get with your money for the skin.
I mean, it's better than what they've been doing, which is just putting the skin out. Yeah. It has no context whatsoever for why it's in there. Like, I guess it does make more sense. And I think for Fortnite players, they probably just think it's fun and it's like a nice diversion. It's just
it's a nice little extra thing.
It's like as an outsider to Fortnite, I'm always trying to figure out what the hell is going on with it. Like, why are people into it? Why am I not into it? I love shooters. Like, it should be something that I enjoy, and I just don't. Like, there's just nothing really that resonates with me about Fortnite, and I keep struggling trying to figure out if I'm missing something, I don't know. It's been this bizarre thing.
I think we're just old.
Yeah. I mean, is it, though? Like, I enjoy other Battle Royale games. Like, why do I not like the leader? It just seems weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
And look, all these skins, I love all these characters. I love all this IP. Like, it should suck me in. It just doesn't. I just think the whole thing feels cheap to me, the way they're handling it. I don't know.
I don't think it feels cheap. Like, I am actually pretty impressed by the quality of the licensed models they have. Like I've like all the, I haven't played obviously in years, but when I do watch the videos of the new, like all the Mandalorian stuff looks great. Like all the Marvel stuff looks great. All the Batman looks great. The Alien looks great.
Yeah, I'm never offended by it. Like I'm never like, oh my gosh, they've desecrated something that I really love. Like I never feel that way.
It's just sort of like, it's kind of like Smash Brothers, I guess. It's just like a bunch of nonsense happens in a competitive area, and it could be anyone from anything, and it's just sort of fun. So, I don't have any interest in playing it because I don't like the repetition of it. Like that's the thing that multiplayer games have just lost me on over the years is like, I don't want to do the same thing over and over again that often. And I know that's ridiculous coming from someone who plays so many Ubisoft open world games, but for some reason that repetition does not annoy me as much as the repetition of multiplayer deathmatch stuff. Which is all I really get out of Battle Royale. Like I know Battle Royale is not a deathmatch, but like, it doesn't feel much different to me.
I mean, it is deathmatch, except it's every man for himself. It's not team-based.
Yeah. And playing as Ripley doesn't really change my mind on that, as cool as that is.
I'll say this, Matt. I am kind of surprised that that Fortnite doesn't resonate with you because all the stuff that they're doing, that's why when I see this stuff, I'm like, are our friends behind this? Because they are doing stuff that should really appeal to you. Like right now, it's an alien like attacking, and then he's shot by like Ripley, and then and then here comes like the Terminators, and then it's like,
but they're still in a multiplayer game I don't care about.
Yeah,
like I care about those characters and they pop up in Mortal Kombat because I like fighting games, but I don't care about this game. And no matter what skin I'm wearing, like it's not going to change the fact that I don't enjoy playing Fortnite.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
I feel the same way. I don't care about frivolous stuff like cosmetics either. Like I don't buy cosmetics in any game, no matter how much I play it. I never buy cosmetics.
Yeah. And also part of the appeal to me of like those kind of licensed characters in something like Mortal Kombat is that they all play different.
Yeah.
The Predator doesn't play like the Terminator, which doesn't play like RoboCop. And it's interesting to me to see how they customize all those characters to feel like those characters.
In Fortnite in particular, there's really no difference. Like,
no, it's just you're just wearing a costume.
Yeah.
The only difference between that and like the earlier costumes is that they got the license to put the real thing in the game. Right. It's like basically they've done sort of what we were talking about with the selling your own secondary market stuff. They're just doing it with mods.
Yep. That's true.
In the past, like these would be mods you'd use to put these characters in this game unofficially, and now Epic has just been like, why don't we just license this shit since we're the biggest thing on the planet? And they, not other games couldn't really do this. Like this is something that Fortnite is just so big that it can like use that leverage to do this with it. The only more prolific licensor in pop culture is probably Funko Pop.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Epic poached a couple of licensed people from Funko for this initiative.
I just wonder what happens when they run out of stuff to license. Like, then what does Fortnite do?
I don't think that will ever happen.
Really?
There will always be more to license.
Really? I don't know. It seems like it's a law of diminishing returns to me. Eventually, you're going to run out of stuff that people really care about. Sure, you're going to be able to license a character from some new sci-fi movie that people kind of liked, but like,
you can go forever for the most part. Like, they haven't even put the Ninja Turtles in this yet. They're just starting.
Yeah, I don't know.
They wouldn't run out for another 20 years.
Really?
So,
You think that long?
Yeah, there's a lot of pop culture out there.
I just wonder, like, Star Wars stuff. Like, will that ever happen? Probably not. Like,
they already.
But
did.
I didn't think like some of the other stuff would happen either. So.
The Star Wars is in this.
Oh, it is?
Dude, Fortnite is canon to Star Wars. The Emperor's announcement that he's come back to life in Rise of Skywalker happened in Fortnite. Like the opening, you never hear that announcement in the movie. The Rise of Skywalker's opening crawl is one reason that Rise of Skywalker is garbage. Rise of Skywalker's opening crawl references the Fortnite speech from the Emperor. It says the dead
had no idea.
That is referring to the Fortnite speech. The only place you can hear the Emperor's announcement to the universe that he's back is in Fortnite.
Okay, so that's one less big IP that they've already used. Like
when they used it again.
That kind of makes my point, though, is that I'm like, what's left to get in there? Well, Star Wars. Oh, it is in there already.
No, there are endless Star Wars characters. Star Wars has milked itself for 45 years. They're not running. They could just go on Star Wars and be a Star Wars game and be fine. But you've also got Marvel, which has all these 60 some years of content. You've got DC, which has 100 years of characters.
But my point is, like,
everything goes on. I mean, you could do Vampire Diaries. You could do Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm just doing horror now. You could do all that stuff.
But people don't care about that stuff very much. That's my point.
Someone
Those are very
does.
Niche. Like, small groups of people care about that stuff. Like, I'm talking about stuff that actually the mass audience cares about.
I would say it's as mass an audience as like Alien
Buffy?
or Terminator. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. In terms of sales, I bet you wouldn't see a whole lot of difference.
Really?
Yeah. It's not on the level of like Star Wars or Marvel or DC.
Well, definitely not.
But you could, man. Like that. I don't think that's all that.
Has there ever even been a Buffy movie?
Yeah, Buffy was a movie first.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Remember that? Started as a movie. It's not a very good movie. It came out in like 92.
Huh. I thought that was always a TV show. Interesting.
No, it was originally a movie that Whedon wrote, and it got turned into a movie that got rewritten heavily, and he didn't like it very much. And then when he got a chance to turn it into a TV series, he did that. The TV series actually references the events of the movie a couple of times. It is canon to the TV series.
I don't know. To me, I feel like eventually they're going to start running out of stuff that I give a crap about. And I'm not as big a pop culture maven as you are, obviously.
Well, you don't even play it, so I don't know why do they care about that?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're trying to get people into the game via these pop culture icons, you're going to run out of icons eventually. And then what?
I don't think they're trying to get people into the game anymore. I think they're just trying to get people that are already playing the game to spend money.
Not quit.
and that seems to be working just fine.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, there's definitely no shortage of cash, that's for sure. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that just happened this morning, today. Big news, and this was what I was alluding to earlier when I said that Sony may be trying to answer some of the stuff that's been happening with Bethesda over at Xbox. And that was today. It was announced that Jade Raymond, who literally just left Stadia like a week ago, although now I think it's pretty obvious she left a while ago. It was just announced that she left Stadia not long ago. She already has a new gig, and if you watched Pactor Factor from a few days ago...
she didn't leave a while ago, but she saw the handwriting on the wall and was already talking to people.
Because this didn't happen overnight, Matt.
No.
She has a new studio called Haven, and it is already being backed by Sony.
Look, I don't think there's any way you could work that inside with Stadia stuff and not know that you were on a sinking ship a long time ago.
Like when she went on stage and they announced Stadia, my guess is by then she was probably already like, I don't know if this is going to work out or not.
These guys will pay me for the next 9-10 months.
I've got a contract here and I'm really happy.
Somewhere. Like, like I've done that, but I've taken the job I knew wasn't going to last, but they were paying me pretty well for that period of time. I was like, this will do for now.
Like, I'll ride it out. I'll make my money.
Until I hit the iceberg, it'll be okay. You know?
And the big news is it's backed by Sony. Sony has invested in the studio, and the first game coming from the studio will, in fact, be a PlayStation exclusive. Pactor said that she already had another job. Well, I recorded it like 2 weeks ago, but you just saw it on Pactor Factor a few days ago. So inside the industry, it's already been known that she had another job for quite a while. And Pactor tipped you off to that in Pactor Factor if you watched it whenever we put it up. Matt, how do you feel about this?
I feel good because this game will probably come out.
Will it?
I mean, unless Sony folds, if they can get Death Stranding out, they can get this out. I also like that she called the company Haven. It's just like
safe haven.
Finally, we found somewhere safe to be. From it's because it's been a long time since she actually got to ship something.
She hasn't shipped a game in over a decade, Matt.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, the last game that she can kind of put her name on, where it was her concept and like everything went through and it actually happened, is like Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
Like she started the studio that developed Watch Dogs and kicked off that IP, and that really is her last sort of big shipped thing that she's done in the industry. She went on to work at EA for a while, and worked
she went on to EA Motive, and their first thing didn't materialize, and their Star Wars thing didn't materialize.
Yep. And then she left there, and then she went to Stadia and worked there for a couple years, and we all know the story with that. They just completely dropped all their original games, all their original IP. They're not going to create games anymore. And here she goes to launch her own thing, which is the one thing that she has not done yet, which is start her own studio, her own independent studio. And it's interesting because she, in the press releases and everything, it's independent, indie, independent. And I think that maybe set expectations for some people that maybe the games that come out of the studio are going to be these smaller projects that may be like your typical indie game, a side-scrolling platformer, or a first-person horror adventure, or whatever the typical stereotypes are for indie games. Do you think that's going to be the case, Matt?
No.
Me either. Like, I think these are big-budget AAA projects that she's going to work on.
I think independent on this just means we aren't answering to anybody.
Right. We
for our
own
survival.
it independently. Nobody owns us, which may also change in the not-too-distant future, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can be an independent studio and still not make indie games, because the indie game thing, I mean, if we're really talking about what the words mean, it means you are independently funded. If you are being funded by Sony, you are not making an indie game, but you can still be an independent studio. Gearbox did that forever. Like Gearbox, obviously wasn't making indie games. They're making Borderlands for 2K, but Gearbox was an independent studio. No one could tell them what to do except Randy Pitchford.
And most importantly, with Jade, is she has extensive experience in launching new IP. She launched Assassin's Creed. She launched Watch Dogs. She had a couple different IP that she was working on at other places that never saw the light of day, but nevertheless, she got into a studio that, started from the ground up with nothing and started building a team and then started building a project. She's a perfect person to do something like this. Do you think that Sony jumped in on this because of what happened with Bethesda, Matt?
Probably not directly.
Do you think the timing of the announcement might be tied into it in some way? Because this seems a little rushed.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think this is a counter to Bethesda in any real way. But I do think she has this sensibility that makes her a fit to Sony. Like the idea of a creative person who can bring stuff from nothing to something that isn't afraid to kind of break a paradigm here and there. I'm not saying she's in the same vein as Kojima necessarily, but she's much more like Kojima than she is like a corporate Microsoft entity. You know what I mean? One of the reasons people are speculating about the indie thing versus the independent thing is because you could see her make stuff like that if she wanted to. You don't really know what she's going to do next in a lot of ways. That's one of the reasons I wish we'd gotten more games from her in the last 10 years, because I like the stuff she comes up with. Even if it's sometimes rough when it comes out, I love the first Assassin's Creed, but certainly no one's going to claim that's a perfect game.
No.
But WoW, you can see so much potential and heart behind it. I don't know if I'd say the same about Watch Dogs.
I think you just described Death Stranding as well, though.
Death Stranding is a labor of love. No one, that game doesn't exist if you don't believe in that concept, right, for better or worse.
Do you think that might be what's been happening to Jade, though? At these stops that she's been at over the last 10 years, is that maybe the projects just are something like Death Stranding, where I'll be honest with you, I could see that Death Stranding was not going to be a huge financial success before I played it. You think maybe, and look, Sony's willing to take those risks, obviously. It put a lot of money into Kojima Studio to release Death Stranding. But do you think that might be why she hasn't resurfaced and has taken so long?
No, I think she's been screwed over by executive shit.
Okay.
Because look, while for all the elements of weirdness and paradigm breaking she may do, her two biggest examples of that are Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs, 2 gigantic mega hits, one of which has defined Ubisoft's output for the last 17 years almost.
Yeah.
So I don't think she has a track record that can allow you to say, I don't know if your ideas are going to work at market. Like, she's proven that works. I think she's just ended up in bad luck situations where the overarching situation was being mismanaged by higher ups, which is hardly an unusual situation to find yourself in at EA. The Stadia thing, I don't know. I mean, who knows what they told her up front or convinced her of up front. Clearly, she knew what was going on and had this lifeboat ready to go by the time Stadia collapsed like a flan in a cupboard. So clearly she and probably everybody else who was working internally at Google for that knew what was going on long before we did. I mean, actually, I guess we knew as well when it came down to, like, we knew, come on, we knew. But everyone knew except Super Bomberman. So yeah, I am hesitant. I mean, it could be that her projects were too esoteric for mainline executives to greenlight in the end. But I really am inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt on this and say that she was making stuff that was her usual sort of, good idea with solid mechanics and solid, a little bit of paradigm breaking here and there, but something that is clearly marketable. And just the Star Wars thing was just nobody's fault on the ground. That was EA on a macro level beyond anything you could imagine. The Stadia is the same way. The only thing I could really say, like, maybe that first Motive game that we never saw materialize, maybe that was something a little too esoteric or whatever, but I don't know if there's
Ubisoft's
no evidence to support that.
Willing to take risks than a lot of other publishers are.
Who is?
Ubisoft.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a roller skating game coming out, so
oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Roller Champions. It's like a roller derby game. Like, Ubisoft is willing to kind of strike out in the dark and kind of see what happens.
I mean, say what you will about the Crew games, but that is a bizarre way to go.
It is bizarre.
Let alone make 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, Ubi's known for that. Like, just think about its press conferences. Like, the goofy stuff that it does in its press conferences.
Why does Steep exist?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I wonder if...
And they're still supporting that game.
I know. To me, I wonder if Ubi and Jade were the perfect match. And
I think in terms of kind of tone they were, but I wonder if maybe it would be a better fit now that some of the people higher up at Ubi who were a problem in terms of blocking women rising through the ranks and harassing and stuff. I mean, like that would be maybe, but again, like that would be a backwards move for her right now. Sony is also very supportive of weird stuff and esoteric creators. So
that's why I think she's found another perfect match.
And I'm saying, even though if it takes a while, this is the company that let Team Eco take 11 years to make The Last Guardian. Like, we're gonna see something out of Jade here.
Yeah. We're gonna get the game. Who knows how long it's gonna take? It may be a while, man.
Maybe, but at the same time, like, they got Kojima's game out in 2 years.
They did,
and maybe in this situation, maybe all she needs is to be left alone
and given enough resources to build.
Yeah, give her the
big
resources.
Enough team with talented people.
Go for it. Like, because I have to imagine that EA is a micromanaging place to be.
I would definitely say that's probably true.
So I think a situation where they basically said, where she presents what we want to do, and Sony's like, cool, let's do that. Go for it. Let us know when you got something to show us. And she goes off with her team and they make the thing. Like, that sounds like the ideal situation for Jade Raymond to me.
The other thing, too, to me anyway, is that, look, she hasn't shipped anything for 10 years. Games have changed in the last decade. Probably not as much as they should have, to be fair, but they have. And, there's always that concern. Someone's been out of the game for that long. Are they capable of...
Well, that's the thing, though. She hasn't been out of the game. She's been working constantly. We just haven't seen what she made. It's not like she stopped learning. It's not like she stopped paying attention to the medium. It's just we never got to play what she made in that time.
Yeah, that's true. And look, I'm a big fan of Jade, and I have faith that she's going to create something that I personally am probably going to really love and geek out over. Whether it will be financially successful and whether everyone else will agree with me, who knows? But I'm sure once upon a time someone would have brought up the idea of Assassin's Creed to someone, and they've been like, "Who cares about that? Who cares about ancient assassins like jumping off of a tree and stabbing someone through the neck with a blade.
Well, also, you forget how much of that game they had to invent.
Right.
Like the tech, like they had to invent the tech to make their idea for that game happen. Like there was nothing that existed that could make Assassin's Creed work. They had to build it. And they did. It took a couple of games to refine it into what it needed to be. But that first game is rough. But like I played the first Assassin's Creed five times. It's exactly what it said. Yeah,
what they said it was going to be. Like I wasn't when I played it. I wasn't like, hey, what is this? Like.
And it's funny that like it was, I gave it a 5 out of 5 when it came out. I loved it. I still loved it. I played it 5 times over the years. And there's still nowadays it's funny to me that there are people that go back to that first game now and are like, oh, the new games are too action RPG and they should be more like the first Assassin's Creed because that really felt like assassinating someone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
I mean, they did. The games did kind of lose her vision. Let's be honest. I mean, her vision wasn't for Assassin's Creed to be what it is now.
Oh, no.
She left, and that's when the game started changing to what they are now.
Yeah, there was a methodical element to that first 2 games in terms of kind of planning the assassinations, gathering information, and learning about how. Because the first game doesn't hold your hand on that nearly as much as the later ones do. Where if you actually do pay attention during all the eavesdropping missions and stuff, you will learn different ways into the place you need to assassinate someone that will not be highlighted by the HUD, that will not be you won't be reminded of it necessarily, but someone will say something during the eavesdropping mission about like, we're stacking these boxes up behind this building and we go over there and there they are stacked back there and you can get in through the back window. And it's a much easier way to assassinate the guy instead of just going through the front or kind of climbing through the rafters or something. Yep. It's all there. It's, and that's an interesting idea that I would kind of like to see them re-explore again because they really did get away from that in subsequent games.
Another feather in Sony's cap.
Yeah.
They got Jade Raymond making exclusive games for PlayStation. And they have Kojima making exclusive games for PlayStation. And now developers know, you know what, I'm not trapped here. Like, my game may eventually make it to PC as well. So, I think last week I talked about feathers in the cap a couple of times during the show. And here's another case where it's like people are sizing up the 2 platforms. They're like, hey, that girl that made Assassin's Creed is making games for PlayStation and just for PlayStation now. So just another thing for people to consider when they're going to buy the new consoles here over the next year and a half. I do think that we probably won't see her game for 3 years is my guess.
Yeah, that's about
if she's
right.
just starting the team now, I mean, does she even have like a game spec'd out? Like, or did she use that already at Stadia?
I'm sure she has other ideas.
I'm sure she does, but like, how far along was she on the project at Stadia? Does Stadia now own that? Like, can she bring people over from Stadia who were working on that game with her there? Like,
well, I don't know. The cloud tech of Stadia makes it impossible for anything that ran on that to run. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. What we know about Google, maybe they didn't even care.
I mean, it may be a case where they're like, maybe even before she went there, she's like, look, this IP, if it doesn't work out here, I'm taking it with me. It may be in her contract that she could do that. And
that would be nice.
And look, Google, why would Google care about her taking the people? Because they're not making games anymore. So it could be a smoother transition than we think.
Well, and also, why would Google care about the IP?
Right, exactly.
What's Google going to do with a game idea?
And she could have negotiated her exit. Maybe she says to them, look, I'll let you out of my contract. You don't have to pay me for the next 4 years, which is what they're on the hook for. If you give me the IP and you let me take what we've done here over to work with on my new studio, and they didn't even know that Sony was investing in it yet or whatever, she's just like, I'm going to start my own independent studio. I'm sick of this shit, and I want to take what people I want to take, and I want to take this idea and the work that we've done over there. If you let me do that, I'll let you out of my contract. That very well could have happened.
Or you let me do that, I won't talk about what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways that she could have worked it. So maybe it isn't 3 years. Maybe it's...
Because I'd read that tell-all book, too.
I would, too. She has a great book to write someday, for sure.
Yeah, she does.
Absolutely. So anyway, Jade, best of luck. I really hope the best. And I think you're right. Like, we're going to see her output this time. Like, unlike the last 10 years, we're going to eventually see what she's working on this time. It is a little bit of a bummer that it's exclusive. Obviously people who bought a Series X already are like, dang, I wish I had known that before I pulled the trigger on it or whatever. But that's the way the industry operates, and you just got to roll with the punches sometimes. So, and
you got a few years to save up for the PS5.
That's true. Yeah.
If this is really your system seller.
Yep, absolutely. So best of luck to Jade and to Haven, the brand new studio that she just formed. Let's move on. We're going to talk next. Man, it's hard to believe we got this many topics in this show. It really is hard to believe. About what I'm calling the double zombie. That is what is in the lower third for this topic. Matt, can you think of any time where fans have revived a game that was killed by a publisher and done it legitimately, not like illegally, or we're going to keep modding this thing that existed and it's not really like legit, but you're still going to be able to download the patches? Have you ever had can you think of another time where fans legitimately revived a game that people had been playing for a long time? The publisher didn't care anymore, and the fans were like, we can't let this go. And then the publisher actually worked with them to revive it. Can you think of any?
No. I mean, there have been MMOs that shut down and had fan servers that went up
Right.
that had developers that kind of on the sly helped with some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of an actual like relaunch, no, I can't think of one where that happened.
Well, that is exactly what's happening with Epic's, again, a big Epic episode, with Epic's MOBA, Paragon. It's been renamed to Predecessor, and a group of fans who loved Paragon, which I guess they were out there, Matt. There were some people that loved this MOBA. They raised $2.2 million. I think it was via crowdfunding to help support them. And then this is bolstered by the fact that Epic gave up all the assets for the game for free, which Epic values at over $12 million worth of assets. It just gave out to the world and was like, you know what? We're not going to use this stuff. Somebody else might. And yeah, they're going to use it for this revived version called Predecessor. My first question to you, Matt, is this a good idea? Do you even remember Paragon at all?
I mean, once I saw it on the rundown, I was like, oh yeah, that. If you hadn't put it in the rundown, I don't think I would have ever thought of it again.
It was,
I guess, until
3D,
this happened.
I was to call it melee heavy.
Yeah, I remember it was melee heavy. You play as gods in it, I think.
Yep.
Like you pick different gods, and yeah, I think I played it a couple of times just to see what it was.
Like it's probably the closest analog I would say as far as popular MOBAs are concerned is Smite, because it is a 3D.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of Smite.
Smite is all gods. You're right.
Yeah.
But these were like fiction. Those like Smite tries to use like real Greek mythology in a very loose way. These were like sci-fi gods, so to speak.
Okay. I don't think I played Paragon then.
It's probably the best looking 3D MOBA on the market, to be honest with you. It looks way better than Smite. It's like realistic looking instead of cartoony. And I played it a few times. I could never really get into it. Honestly, I like the traditional MOBA, like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm, like the more isometric, or Dota. The isometric kind of can see more of the map at once type MOBA. This is one of those where the camera's right over the shoulder of your character. It's really melee heavy. There is range stuff in it, but for the most part, it's all melee based. And it just never really found an audience. I remember Hoffman, when he first went there, tried to get me to play. He's like, oh, I know you like League. He's like, you should give our new MOBA a go. And that's why I played it. And I could just never resonate with it. I think what what bothers me the most about MOBAs that are like this, where it's like 3D over-the-shoulder camera, is fighting the waves of the creeps. Like, there's just something weird about just having these repetitive enemies, fighting them in 3D versus fighting them in kind of an isometric camera angle where you can see the waves coming. In this game, it just felt like a repetitive hack and slash to me after a while. There wasn't a ton of depth in the combat. And so I felt like I was just playing Dynasty Warriors. Every once in a while, I'd come across another main character to fight.
I always remember a game. It wasn't a MOBA because it predates MOBAs, but I think it was called Savage. It probably wouldn't be called that today. But
probably not.
It was basically a real-time strategy game where you could play as the individual units, and one player was like the general, like the leader. And so the general leader on the team could see the whole map like a normal real-time strategy game, and the rest of you were all on the ground as individual units. And the general guy could click on places and instruct you what to do. And you didn't have to do it if you didn't want to. But the idea was that you had someone sort of macro strategy watching the whole battlefield and sort of giving you guidance on what needed to happen on the ground because you weren't able to see that perspective.
Didn't Ubisoft have a game like that too, not that long ago?
Maybe?
Yeah. What was it called?
I don't know.
I can't remember. But I think Ubisoft had one like that too, where it was an RTS, but you had one person who was like the mastermind.
Oh, there was a yeah.
And I remember the
Like-
trailer for it. It had like, it was a live action trailer.
Yeah,
It had
I think
a
it was a
dude
Tom
at this
Clancy
like
thing.
sci-fi looking like board. Like, I can't, someone in chat may remember what it was.
Yeah, there was there was also like Need for Speed did that at one point. You remember that?
Really?
Like, yeah, one of the Need for Speed games had, or the open world Need for Speed
Mag.
games had
That was a
Mag.
Ubisoft
That's
game,
right. It had a Need for Speed game that was like,
Fred
it had,
Loves Joe.
it
Thank
had
you.
an app, and you booted up the app, and the auto. What was the? Remember that? What was the login thing you had to do? Auto drive or auto? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Auto log.
Autolog, that's it. And you logged into the app, and the player on the app got like a big map of the whole open world map, and you could see all the players in the session, and you could fuck with people. Like you could like start races, or you could like send cops after individual players.
I
or,
forgot
like, send
about that.
helicopters after them. They did the same. I think they did the same thing with Battlefield. The Battlefield had that too. Like
yeah, it has
you
commander
had a
view. Absolutely.
Commander view.
Yeah. They still have that in Battlefield. And it annoys the crap out of me, in all honesty. Because you have some dude who's like trying to tell you what to do, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And then like he has like this thing where he can like mess with you. He's like, dude, do what I'm telling you to do. Basically like this ping, and I'm like, just stop. Like I'm trying to kill people. Like I hated it in Battlefield.
And here we see why Savage did not catch on.
I think the concept can work.
As I recall, is the problem with Savage is also that it was literally an RTS to the degree that like you had to walk up to a tree and hit it a bunch of times to give the team wood, right? Like they didn't just have you running around doing MOBA stuff. You had to do like the RTS gather resource shit, which is incredibly boring.
It is.
So that was a bad idea. But
I think the idea could work, but that's not what.
I mean, there's something there. There is absolutely something there.
But that's not what Paragon is. Paragon is literally, it's a MOBA where you play as your one character, and it's being revived.
Yeah.
It never really had a huge audience, and so my question is.
But apparently, it had a dedicated one.
Yes, I mean, apparently there's a small group of people who cared a whole lot about it when it went away, enough to raise $2.2 million and then use the free assets that Epic gave up to create Predecessor, and that's what we're seeing now. This is actually Predecessor. The B-roll before was from the OG Paragon. Matt, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think these people just wasted their money?
Probably.
Yeah.
Then again, it's not like Epic can't afford to throw somebody a bone once in a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's cool as crap that Epic did this, that it just said, here, take all the assets and go at it. But the people who have spent the $2.2 million, like, do you think they're going to get a return on their investment beyond, like, yeah, we can play this now? Like,
Probably not.
Yeah.
I sure wish someone would do that with City of Heroes.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a really good idea.
I'd love to play that game again.
That actually, if it were revived, might have a future. Because I look at Paragon,
so.
It's like the people who donated the $2.2 million, they're probably the only people who are going to play this. Like just because fans revive something, that doesn't spark my interest in it. It doesn't make me interested in it again. We are talking about it on GameFace, so maybe we're helping give it a second chance. But my guess is most people watching this aren't going to go immediately download Predecessor and give it a go either because they didn't like Paragon, but now because fans gave $2.2 million, they do. Like it just seems like a waste of money and a big waste of time for the people who are involved in the project. But I think you're right. I think maybe the better discussion is what other games maybe we should do this with that actually a game that would have a chance to actually be revived and have fans get involved with it. Like Tribes, maybe like the OG Tribes. For me, like that game to me does have some relevance now. There still really aren't any shooters that play like that. And my argument against the recent Tribes is that they became way too complicated. You got to keep it simple, stupid. And the Tribes, like the times that they've done, like Tribes 2 or Tribes 3, Tribes Ascension, like even as a Tribes fan, I felt overwhelmed by those games. I was like, there's too much in here. Like, where's the base? Now there's like 20 bases. Like, no, there should be 2 frickin' bases. My base and the other team's base. I go and take the other team. Everyone understands that. It just became way too complicated. So the way I look at this whole story is that maybe people like me or whoever, or people who really like City of Heroes, should feel inspired by it to do something about it. Now, do I think I could get the Tribes IP from Hi-Rez to do something like this? Probably not. Like, I don't think they're going to be nice like Epic and be like, because Hi-Rez is also kind of in dire straits right now. But I don't see them being like Epic and being gracious and just saying, here's all the assets. Just go do what you want. You can use the IP if you want. Although they did change the name of the game for this project. And, it's not called Paragon anymore. But what do you think about City of Heroes? Do you think that's feasible with something like City of Heroes?
Probably not. I don't know what happened to City of Heroes. City of Heroes also has never had a fan server or any kind of resurrection in that regard because no one could ever get hold of the source code.
Who owns it? Is it Funcom?
I guess. Does Funcom still exist?
I don't know. Yeah, it does. Yeah, they do all the Conan stuff still.
NC Soft, I guess, still has it.
I mean, they still exist. I'm surprised with all the Avengers stuff.
Okay, I guess, April 2019, source code cable of running City Heroes server was distributed and made it possible to create them outside the direct purview and revived interest in the game.
Huh.
As of August 2020, NCSoft has not moved to have servers based on the source code shut down.
Wow.
So I know what I'm doing after this show's over.
Are you really going to do it?
I'm going to look into it, yeah. I love City Heroes.
I mean, a lot of people did. A lot of people at G4 love City of Heroes, and a lot of people who worked at Game Trailers love City of Heroes. They would go home and play after work.
I had my City of. I mean, I like City of Villains a little bit more. I had my commander class with all my ninjas. I enjoyed that a lot.
I'll say this: that is one MMO I stuck with longer than almost any of the other ones that I tried.
I did actually stop playing City of it kind of mostly permanently in 2004 because I was playing it one night. I was playing it when my cat died. Basically, like literally, like suddenly realized he wasn't there and went in the bathroom and he was dying under the sink. And I've always been like,
the association.
If I had not been playing City of Heroes, would I have been paying attention to what happened to him, kind of thing?
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't have stopped the inevitable from happening, though.
Probably not. No, but it's
cats
just one
also
of those
when
things
they pass away, they want nothing to do with you. They go hide somewhere and they're like, leave me alone. That was the hardest part about my cat dying, was she wanted nothing to do with me while she was dying. I was like, no, I need closure. And she's like, get away.
I mean, she was very sick. He was very sick at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had been in and out of the hospital, but like just thought he was okay and he wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was playing City Heroes at the time. So maybe that's why I don't like MMOs very much.
But I think this is a fool's errand, this project. But I think that the idea is a sound one. If you can find, like, City of Heroes is a great example. It's a shame because City of Heroes missed the whole superhero wave.
Yeah, there would have been. And also City of Heroes, I don't think their character creation has ever been equaled.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was incredible.
That's a big reason why I stuck with it, honestly.
You know the other game I would like, the other stupid MMO that nobody liked that I would like to play again? Earth and Beyond.
I don't even remember that one.
Remember that?
No.
That was EA. That was by EA, like around 2001, 2002-ish. And it was an MMO where you were a spaceship. It was by the team that made Command and Conquer Renegade. Speaking of RTSs being turned into other things, it was actually used the same engine as Renegade. And you just flew, or you picked like an explorer ship or a combat ship or like a healing ship. And you basically flew around the galaxy from solar system to solar system. And like you either fought stuff or you explored. And I was an explorer, and I would stay. I was at before you came to Tech TV, and I would stay after work every night and play it on the PC in the game lab. And eventually I went to every star system and I was done. Like that, I maxed out the level. I saw everything in the game, and I was like, I guess the game's over. And that was it. There's nothing else to do. And then they shut the game down like 6 months later. But I would love to play that game again. It was fun.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone in chat has brought up any games that they're like, this could actually work for, that they'd be excited about. It's really hard to think of too many, because even like things that you think are dead IP, somebody owns it. It's
Tabula Rasa.
Wow, that's a good one actually, and that might be available actually.
Yeah, that was Lord British, right?
Yeah, and I think that was Funcom actually.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big failure. I don't know if people liked it enough to want to revive it.
I remember I bought the collector's edition of that on the way to a party because it was the night it came out. And
you were the life of the party?
I left it in the car, but I never opened it. Like when I moved, I found it in a box still sealed in shrink wrap. And I looked on eBay and it was worth like $4. Like no one cared about Tabula Rasa.
Erebus Jones says Marvel Heroes.
Oh, Marvel Heroes would be a huge one.
Definitely not going to get that one, though. That's not
no.
going to happen.
I mean, shutting Marvel Heroes down was a crime.
Yeah.
Like, that game was great.
But you're not going to be able to revive that one.
No, that was by the Diablo 2 guys.
You're not going to get the assets for that one.
I spent a ridiculous amount of money on that game, getting costumes
you're not alone.
and characters and stuff.
Yeah, I had friends back home that
and
were
that
really
thing just
into
shut down like that. Gazillion got screwed on that.
It's weird how that happened. Yeah.
And for a long time, the Marvel hated that game because Gazillion's license let them use anyone. And at the time, Marvel was trying to downplay the Fantastic Four and the X-Men because Fox had the movie license, but Gazillion was like, we don't give a shit about that. We're doing more Fantastic Four. And at one point, they actually did manage to pull the Fantastic Four from the game, from the market. You couldn't buy the Fantastic Four characters anymore after a certain point, but then they shut the whole game down like 3 months later and started over, and now we got the Avengers.
Yep.
I would love to play Marvel Heroes again. That was a great game.
Not going to happen, though. You're definitely not going to get the assets for that.
They shut that thing down like 3 months after it finally launched on consoles, too.
That's so bizarre. Like, who does that to a Marvel game? It's so weird.
It was a very weird corporate choice. Yeah. No other explanation.
Yeah. Well, anyway, look, if you want to play an odd MOBA, and I know you all are huge MOBA players, and you want to support a group, I mean, look, I give these guys props. Like, it's awesome what they've done and they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like sour grapes on the whole project. I don't think it's going to be successful ultimately, but I do think it could inspire other projects that could be. So kudos to these guys. Again, it's a completely reworked version of Paragon called Predecessor. And it's time to move on to our last topic of this week's episode, and that is Star Citizen. And this week, Matt, Star Citizen, this is insane, crossed $350 million worth of crowdfunding. It's been 8 years of crowdfunding since they launched the whole program. The game was originally supposed to be released in November of 2014. Matt, this is what I want to ask you, because I know that you are invested in this game. You are one of the people who has bought ships and have put a big chunk of cash. You have skin in this game. Matt, is Star Citizen a scam?
No, I don't think it's a scam. I do think it is a bait and switch to some degree. Because here's the thing. I did back it on Kickstarter, and I did buy some lifetime insurance ships. I haven't bought a ship on that thing since like November 2013, when they stopped giving away lifetime insurance automatically with every ship purchase. But I do have about $700-800.
Now, what does that mean, Matt, for people who don't
lifetime
know?
Insurance, basically the way the game is going to work, theoretically going to work one day, maybe someday when we're all 70, is in the MMO version of it. Because Star Citizen is different from Squadron 42, which is the single player cinematic Wing Commander spiritual successor. Star Citizen is the name for the multiplayer game with the living universe.
Matt, why are they making two games?
Well, that's kind of part of I'll get to that. That's kind of part of the bait and switch. The lifetime insurance basically means like if your ship gets blown up in the multiplayer game and it's not insured, you lose it.
For good.
Like you for good. You have to buy another ship. If you have insurance on it, which you can pay either with real money supposedly or with in-game money, your ship will be replaced with the insurance policy. Early on, like I believe it ended around Thanksgiving 2013. If you bought a ship through the pledge manager thing, you got lifetime insurance with that ship, which means that forever, every time that ship of yours gets blown up, another one will instantly respawn for free in your hangar.
Okay.
Not any add-ons or bonus stuff or cargo or whatever, but the ship itself will pop back up in your hangar. Lifetime insurance versions of ships go for a lot of money, or did for a while. I don't know how hot the secondary market is these days. I haven't looked in a while. The bait and switch I'm talking about is that the initial pitch was much more focused on Squadron 42, which is the spiritual successor to Wing Commander. I just wanted to play another fucking Wing Commander game.
And that is why you got in on the Kickstarter?
Yeah, the Star Citizen element was like a multiplayer-focused persistent universe thing that was supposed to be like an add-on, expanded kind of how we'll make the game last sort of forever thing. Squadron 42 is what, when I'm thinking about the game that was supposed to be out in 2014, I'm thinking about Squadron 42, which they already shot all the footage with Malcolm McDowell and Mark Hamill and all these other actors for the live action, motion capture cutscenes and stuff like Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4. And they've supposedly had roadmaps out for the Squadron 42 stuff that's separate from the Star Citizen stuff. Squadron 42 was supposed to hit like early alpha at like the end of 2019. It still hasn't hit early alpha now. It's never happening. Like you're at a point where you're like, okay, it's been 9 years. Where is this thing? I don't even care about the stars.
Seems like a lot of money to invest in something to not come through. But it's not their money, so...
Right. I mean, it seems to be, there's a lot of questions about, like, clearly it's the victim of some feature creep. No one's there to tell Chris Roberts no about any new idea. They basically just keep adding things and adding things and adding things, and it's just never going to get done. Meanwhile, Elite Dangerous is kind of catching up to their ideas with an actual game. Like, Elite Dangerous is about to launch an expansion that adds ground combat and like all this stuff that like Star Citizen has promised forever, but just hasn't been able to deliver. There is a playable alpha server on the thing. Alpha is a generous term for what exists of Star Citizen right now. You can go in and you can kind of fly a ship around and you can go to a planet, that one planet, and like there's a star-based city kind of place you can walk around in. It's very buggy and unstable and no persistent anything really unless you like force it to be. You can fly some of the ships, not all the ships. A lot of the ships they sell these days are just pictures, that'll one day be in the game.
Like they're not even modeled yet? You can't even like look at them in 3D?
Oh no.
Wow.
No. Like they're just like one day they'll be there. Trust us. Give us $800.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have gotten my entertainment's worth out of this game.
Really?
Even though it doesn't exist, because the cult surrounding it is so
I mean, laughing at the people
watch.
that are involved.
I mean, there was literally a thread last week or the week before on the forums that was, are you okay with a 20-year development cycle for this game? Like, if this game comes out, like, then, like, in 20 years, are you okay with that? And a couple of these people are like, I'm going to be 70 when that happens. And a couple of them were fine with it. Like, they're like, I guess this is what I'll do when I'm retired.
Wow.
When this game comes out. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine. And, like, when I talk, then the other interesting thing about Star Citizen is most of the people who are hard into this thing are older. Like, you and I are like young end of the spectrum for Star Citizen investors, let's call them
Which
that.
seems crazy because they're the ones who should be really worried about whether it ever is going to come out or
right,
not.
But that's exactly it. A lot of these people are in their 50s. They're the ones who grew up in the hardcore flight sim, space sim era and have had nothing comparable to it. And they have a lot of disposable income now.
Oh.
And that's what they're throwing at this thing. And it's amazing. Like, it's... some of it's sad. Some of it's almost aspirational. The long and the short of it is, do I think this is a scam? No, I do not think it's a scam. I do not think that Chris Roberts planned to steal money from everyone and never make a game in exchange. I do think that something has gone horribly wrong with the management of this project. And unless someone steps in and fixes it, it will never come out.
Do you think that he's realized?
I don't think anyone can, though, because he's in charge of all of it. No one can do anything about this.
Do you think that he's realized at this point, though, that he doesn't need to finish the game because these whales, as you're talking about, are just going to keep feeding the coffers?
I think that is a fair assessment at this point. Also, like, people go on about how, oh my God, they've raised $350 million, what a ridiculous amount of money. Like, they must just be all riding yachts to Aruba and stuff. But if you crunch the numbers, that's about how much it would cost to keep these dev studios the size they have open this long.
Why can't they finish the game, though, Matt? I mean, it's been 9 freaking years.
There's been people that come out of it as they work there briefly. It's like everything, there's no communication. They changed what things should be, and now you have to redo everything. They're trying to build things. They're trying to build the physics system before they build the flight system, and then the flight system doesn't work because the physics system wasn't built to handle it, so they got to redo that. Like, they've started over a couple times. They switched engines from Crytek to CryEngine to Lumberyard, and now they might be switching over to something else. The last I heard, like, it's just a disaster of project management from top to bottom, and there's no way to pull it all together, really. It's astounding. And like Squad, I mean, look, at a certain point, the Star Citizen thing had clearly, the Star Citizen as the multiplayer aspect of this had clearly spun off into Crazy Town. And for a while I was like, well, I just want to get Squadron 42. I just want the single player campaign game, which is really what I like about Wing Commander anyway. And I'll be happy with that. But then it just, I said that like circa 2015, I said that around the time I started hosting this show with you.
Wow. Think about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And at this point, look, it's sunk cost. Like I spent that money.
You spent the money so long ago. It's like you don't even.
Yeah,
it's like it's just
whatever.
Gone.
So what are you going to do? So at this point, I'm just sort of sitting back and watching and seeing what happens. Like,
what do you think's gonna? You think if people stop contributing, they'll finish the game, or do you think that would just end the game?
I think that would just end the game. You can't finish this thing. That's the thing. It's like it's unfinishable. What they've proposed to do is unfinishable.
How old is the lead developer?
Chris Roberts?
Yeah.
He's got to be his late 50s by now, I think.
Wow. So, Matt, would you recommend anyone invest in this game at this point?
No. The only thing I would recommend is, like, if you can get, like, sometimes they do sales or like flash things or whatever. You can spend like $10-15 to get the basic like starter kit with like, it comes with a tiny ship and like just access to the game, just so you can read the forums. That's pretty entertaining sometimes.
So you're saying spend $10 to read the forums?
Spend $10 to read the forums and get the newsletters. Like, that's pretty great. Like, some of that stuff, because they'll it was like all the roadmap stuff they send out. It's like, that is the same thing you sent 2 months ago. It's not changed. Nothing's getting any better.
Do you think it'll ever be
astounding.
finished? Like even Squadron 42?
I think, like, if I had to like put money on it, and I did. My guess right now would be that like Squadron 42, like they'll put out like chapter 1. Okay. They'll at some point they will announce it's going to be like episodic, right? And they'll put out chapter 1 with like 4 or 5 missions, 2 of which will work properly. And then they'll spend a year fixing the other 3, and then we'll never see another chapter again.
I mean, watching this B-roll, I could see why you invested in it, because it is right in your wheelhouse. It's jump in a ship, leave the hangar, go out into space, dogfight, find another ship, jump out of your ship, go into that ship, fight a bunch of dudes, get back out, get back in your ship. It's
conceptually, it is definitely my jam.
Yeah.
But look, that's the other thing is, like, at the time, in 2012, like nothing else looked like that. But now, by the time Star Citizen, if it were to come out, even if Star Citizen came out by the end of this generation, it would look the same as everything else. Yeah. It was a generational leap, but we've passed that generation already. And I'm interested in what the Squadron 42 story might be, but it's like, at this point, like, are you going to release this thing before half the cast dies?
Right.
Because a lot of those guys are getting up there.
It may be a eulogy for the cast.
Put it this way: there is a regularly raised topic on the Star Citizen forums is how to pass your account to next of kin. Like, I'm not kidding. People have died waiting for this game to come out.
Wow. Yeah. Everyone stay far away from this game. Just run away.
I mean, read about it. Yeah. Like, I can't wait for the No Clip documentary.
Oh my gosh. You think they'll never let him do it?
There's a lot of tell-all books in here. Like, it's a thing. But Jeff Keighley should do Last Days of Star Citizen. It's just the last job he ever takes. This is the last 25 years of his life.
Matt, is this a cautionary tale
to leave
for crowdfunding and Kickstarter and whatnot?
No. This is a unique and weird situation that could only have arisen in this circumstance.
What red flags should people look for in the future to
Chris
avoid
Roberts.
getting involved in stuff like this? Other
Chris
than
Roberts.
just him.
You
Really?
should look for Chris Roberts. because there's nothing else like this. No one's done anything else like this. This is a unique situation. And you know, anytime you do some kind of Kickstarter thing, you always got to look at how realistic it seems that you're gonna, like, you know, you're talking about a project that could get finished. The trick with Star Citizen is that you're dealing with a guy who made 5 Wing Commander games, and it seemed like he probably could get it finished.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
but you know,
I don't fault you for like jumping in. It's like, why can't he get this done? He made a bunch of other games, like, and he has had all the money he needs. Like, it's crazy, dude. Like, at a certain point, is there anything legally people can do?
No, because like part of the whole deal with Kickstarter and with the thing you agree to when you donate stuff to, they're donations. That's the thing, is they're all donations.
There's no expectation of return.
Right. You are agreeing to throw your money in a hole and hope a spaceship comes out one day. Yeah.
That's nuts, dude. I feel for you because I know you put a good bit of money into this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't miss it. It's been almost 10 years. It's fine. But I'm certainly not going to put any more in. I would be thrilled if it happened one day. But periodically I log into the server or whatever and see what they're doing, and then, you know, I do.
Have
that
you
about
ever
once
been
a year.
pleasantly surprised?
No, I've been in a couple, like, once a year, and like it's just the same bullshit. It's just this buggy piece of shit that isn't anything I could call an actual game, with no sense of what the actual through line of things would be. For a lot, you know, and the weird thing about Star Citizen is there's a lot of people that are super into it, that their big obsession is minutia and time sinks and wasting time as part of a form of like verisimilitude and immersion. You're talking about people that like insist that there must be a penalty if you don't have your character go shit regularly. People that, like, you know,
I mean, looking at that B-roll, you can definitely see that.
Yeah, like, early on, you would wake up in your apartment in the space state, in the you know, the colony on the planet, and then you'd have to go to the spaceport and pick your ship and get a little like fetch quest mission and fly off and do the thing and come back and turn it in. And there's no shortcut. You have to walk and get on a train and then transfer trains to get to the train that takes you to the spaceport, and then get to the spaceport and take all the stairs and the escalators and get you to the spaceport. And like, it could take like 30 to 40 minutes to get from your apartment to the spaceport. And I'm like, who has time for this after work?
It sounds like the backers and the fans are helping send it down the rabbit hole.
Oh, for sure.
To where it will never be finished.
It is largely catering to a group of weird grognard, like,
rich.
I don't know. They literally want to live in this world. They want to simulate. There was a thing where, like, there's a weird contingent. It's a minority, but it's a weird contingent that insists there needs to be chattel slavery as an economic system, and that you should be able to put players in it. And people are like, no, if I can't force other players who are new to the game to like swab the decks and clean the colony floors before they earn the right to fly a spaceship in maybe a year, it's a terrible game. Wow. And I'm like, what do you think? Who's going to play this shit?
Doomed, yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like,
what's going to come out
is going to be so impenetrable to someone that isn't already immersed in what this is. People are going to bounce off it like a quarter off of The Witcher's ass. It's just not going to resonate with anything. It reminds you may or may not remember this. Do you remember it's a guy named Derek Smart?
Yes, I do know Derek Smart.
I used to know him on a forum, and so he's actually a really good guy.
No, he's a friend of mine. He actually is a friend of mine on Facebook.
Yeah, he's actually a fun dude. If you ever hang out with Derek Smart, he's a fun guy. But he made this series of games called Battle Cruiser. Battle Cruiser 3000. Yeah. He became Universal Combat at one point, and they are super, super detailed capital ship, spaceship simulations, to the point that if you haven't read like a technical manual about how to operate this spaceship the size of an aircraft carrier, you are not going to understand how to start the game. And
no thanks.
And if people would try to play it, because, like, again, it's like, that's my shit. I've tried to play every game he ever made, and I've never gotten more than 10 minutes into it because none of it makes any goddamn sense to me, because it's just so esoteric. And like, this button doesn't do what you think, and nothing's labeled. There's no help at all. But it's the same kind of thing. He has this game in his head he wants to make. He has made it over and over and over. It's never been what he wanted exactly, but he's always tried over and over to make this thing. And Star Citizen reminds me of that, with the exception that Derek Smart shipped a bunch of games.
Right.
That's the difference. He actually got some product out, and people could look at it and say, like, this is my thing, this is not my thing. And he did actually sue Star Citizen at one point. I don't remember what it was. I think it was for fraud or something. I think he did try to like sue on like almost a class action kind of thing.
I'm surprised more people haven't, because not everyone is like a whale that's cool with like waiting 25 years.
But he did go after them at one point, and I was kind of like, I'm interested to see where this goes, because it's like hating Derek Smart became kind of a meme in the early 2000s on the gaming world of the internet, I guess PC gaming internet, and like that while I didn't enjoy the Battlecruiser games, like I super appreciated what he was doing, because he was making what he wanted. You know, it was his passion project. He was making what he wanted to play, and he was not compromising on that, except where money forced him to. He was not compromising creatively in any way.
He got the games done.
And he did ground combat at one
That's
point.
That's a big difference.
He was trying to make this game 15, 16, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he actually, for as broken as some of it was, he did actually ship it.
Yep.
So that's a difference there, but it does remind me of that to some degree in this like, this is an incredible undertaking. It may never actually turn out the way you think it's going to turn out, and even if it does, who is it for?
Yep. So there you go. That's Star Citizen. Stay far, far away, folks.
Stay frosty.
Yes.
Although again, if you can throw like a cheap amount of money just to get access to the forums, it's a ride.
Not a ride worth however amount of money you've spent on it, though.
I don't think there's probably a Twitter account that just posts the best of the Star Citizen forum screenshots or something. It's somewhere you can probably find that on Twitter, I'd imagine.
All right, so there you go. Stay far away from that. But Matt, according to you, not something that should scare you off from crowdfunding other projects.
No, this is an absolutely unique situation. Like I can't imagine I can't even, if I could think of a way to replicate getting $350 million out of people over 10 years, I'd have done it by now.
All right, there you go.
Put it that way.
All right, it's time to get some Q&A. If you have some questions for us, always go at Sifted Games during the Q&A. It makes it easy for us to find your questions. Here's one from Commander Fett. What do you think about the Apex Legends Switch port? Do you think this will make other publishers not want to port their games to Switch until a more powerful version comes? So for those of you who don't know, Apex Legends runs like crap on the Switch. Matt, are you surprised by that?
No.
No. I'm not surprised either. I think a lot of people.
Put it this way. This past week was this. Yeah, it was this past week. There's that game Illusion Chronicles by the Suikoden people. You know that? It's a Kickstarter.
Yep.
For that.
Yeah.
They sent out a note to all of the backers that basically said, "We know we said it's going to be maybe on PC only, but we want to bring it to other platforms, and we're just warning you, if Nintendo hasn't put out better hardware by the time this game is done, probably
Switch
not
isn't happening
on Switch." Like it was just like, wow, like that. I mean, it was like one of those things. Is like, yeah, we don't know if this is going to work. By the time this game is done, you're going to be so outclassed. But it's a thing. Like, trust me, third-party developers are well aware of the power differential here.
Well, I think a lot of people assume that because Doom Eternal came out pretty well, that was just going to be the way it is. That it's possible, and every other developer is going to be able to figure it out, and that's just not the case. Like,
no, every other developer is not id.
I think people are starting to understand how magical Doom Eternal is. Like, it literally is like a magic
and
trick.
Also, like, that engine is magic to some degree. Like, it's, you know,
programming
id
wizards.
tech is another level.
Yep, absolutely. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. Hope you're doing well, man. Aussie Brit 2000, thank you for Twitch Prime. Also, guys, at the end of the show, always a great time to subscribe with Twitch Prime so we can see it. Commander Fett, also subscribe with Twitch Prime. Les Devid, thank you for gifting subs to people. You guys are all flipping awesome. Let's see more questions. AJ the Legend Watson, do you think we'll ever get a Masters of the Universe game? And if so, do you think it would be in the vein of God of War or something entirely different? Great question. Why don't we have any He-Man games? Like, what's up with that? Who owns the IP and is sitting on it?
The short answer is because there's no He-Man anything else to promote with it. There have been He-Man games
it's been
in the past.
15 years maybe since the last one.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I remember the Atari 2600 game.
Yeah. There was one
that-
after that, though, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, look, there is a Kevin Smith produced He-Man reboot coming up for Netflix. It is actually a continuation of the old 80s show.
Really?
It's going to be, I mean, they said continuing off of the lore. I'm like, was there lore for that? It's I don't remember a through line narratively on that series, but okay. But they are picking. It's not going to be like a reimagining like She-Ra was. It's going to be a literal pickup where the 80s show left off thing.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
There theoretically could be a game tie-in with that one. I'll bet you they're going to be in Fortnite.
They probably will be. What is up, though? Isn't it funny that, like, He-Man is this 80s icon? I mean, you can still go to, like, a Hot Topic and get, like, a He-Man or a Skeletor shirt. But as far as it being represented in pop culture, it's completely disappeared. Why is that? I mean, it's not that good. I don't know if you've gone back and watched an old episode of He-Man.
No, I mean, He-Man has been around. It's, there's still figures of it. Last Masters of the Universe game was 2005.
So I was almost dead on 15 years ago.
PS2 game.
Yeah, I remembered it. Yep.
I have never played that. Interesting. I think part of it is like it's always been a bit of a niche.
Like Thundercats.
Thundercats has had more luck. Part of the problem is, and like one of the things when you look at like kind of that versus like Transformers and how that's sort of like persisted a little better. Part of that is because Transformers toys are made by Hasbro and Master of the Universe toys are made by Mattel.
Yeah.
And Mattel has had a much harder time getting the pipeline to collectors, getting product in stores, frankly. And in the end has settled for the Master of the Universe collection lines have mostly been direct sale stuff online through the Matty Collector website, whereas Hasbro's Transformers line has been a retail success in large big box stores and mass retail. So you've got a lot more money at changing hands and a lot more freedom to continue to promote the brand. Also, Michael Bay made a bunch of movies of Transformers, and the only movie we have for Master of the Universe is not great.
Yeah, I mean, Transformers has managed to be able to keep making new toys also, whereas He-Man, what you got is what you got. Well,
He-Man has had new toys forever. Like they've rebooted the series twice. Once in the early 2000s as well, where they put him in space for some reason. It was like a Flash Gordon thing, and then they redid it again, like more as like a standard He-Man thing. But you can, if you know where to look, you can go get really good like masterpiece versions of the old He-Man characters. Just talk to John French about that. John French is a big, our old editor from G4, huge He-Man fan, and knows about this better than I do. But it's out there. It's all targeted at people our age. It's targeted at people our age who grew up with it, because none of the other stuff really caught on.
It doesn't seem like the kids really care about He-Man all that much.
Right. And that's part of the problem is there's no reason for kids to care about it. There's no animated series to grab onto, at least not since the mid 2000s. There's no games. There's no product on the shelves because it's all done directly to collectors through Mattel's website. It's just not a presence. And when you want to remake, if you talk about like, let's do a He-Man reboot movie, people are going to either look at the Dolph Lundgren movie and be like, no, or they're going to look at the property and be like, why do we need to pay for a license for a big, strong guy with a sword? Like we could just make that ourselves.
Yeah, he is pretty generic. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I get, we'll see if this Kevin Smith thing takes off. I'll take a look at it. I like the She-Ra reboot. I don't know how interested I am in just continuing where we left off from the 80s with He-Man. That was, especially if it's the same animation. If you're just going to reuse that same running animation over and over again, like the old the filmation. Yeah. You know exactly that weird like jump thing.
Yeah.
The punch at the camera that he did that every episode. It was I think it was Lou Scheimer, was it Shiner or something? That was the name of the guy who ran that studio. That guy was a master at recycling animation to save money. That was their whole business model. Also, did you know that everyone remembers the He-Man theme, right? The music, the opening theme. That music was actually written for a 70s cop show that never went to series. They composed it and recorded it and the whole thing, and they just had it laying around, and they bought the rights to it and stuck the He-Man thing on top of it, and that was how that show got an awesome theme song, was because it was written for a primetime cop drama.
Unreal.
So if you listen to the He-Man theme and try to imagine like late 70s, early 80s cop characters like poking around the corner and stuff like TJ Hooker. That's what that music was composed to do. And you can see it if you think about it.
Okay. Jose Holiday, thank you for Twitch Prime. Aussie Brit 2000, thank you for Twitch Prime. Erebus Jones, how do you feel about the change of genre for the new Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance game? Exciting or a bit disappointing? I wasn't aware of that, actually. What did they change?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Dark Alliance changed genre?
Yeah,
is it not a Diablo kind of game?
I don't know.
Still described as a third-person action role-playing game. I mean, that's what Dark Alliance was.
Yeah, maybe he can give us more context.
Third-person action. I mean, that's what it always was. Or do you mean, is it like the camera behind the shoulder now, or?
I don't know. I didn't hear anything about that. I didn't see it on Sifted either. Here's one from Lynn Jeff 99. I couldn't watch Ask Shane Anything live episode, but wanted to. How did it go? Nobody showed up. That's what happened. We're gonna have to rethink things because one, it was cordoned off to only people who are pledging at that amount or higher. So that literally the bulk of our patrons are at $4 a month. Most of our audience was just cut off from it in the first place. Trying to promote it and message it, I don't know if I got the word out well enough. I did mention it in GameFace, and we did promote it on the site, and we did promote it on the Patreon the day before and the day of. We hardly got anybody to participate. So if you guys can think of a better way to handle that going forward, a way that you guys will want to show up or will show up, leave it in the comments on Sifted or on Patreon, because we want to get you guys involved. I'll say this. It still lasted an hour. The people that did show up had great questions, and I think the answers were pretty good. An archive of that should be going up here pretty soon, but just not a lot of people showed up. That was really the major problem. So I had fun doing it, and we're going to keep doing it every second Saturday of the month. So if you can think of a better way to make sure people show up, and maybe once you guys watch it and you see how it goes, you'll be more apt to show up. Maybe some of you guys were apprehensive because you're like, I don't want to be on camera or whatever. But maybe once you see it, when the archive goes up, you'll be more apt to do it.
The new trailer went up for Baldur's Gate today, and it's basically it's a behind the character action game now instead of a Diablo isometric thing.
Gotcha.
I prefer that, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that too, honestly. I think that's probably a more modern way to handle it. I would have been okay with isometric as well, but
I would have been fine with that. But I think this is going to have an easier and wider mass appeal.
Yeah. And if you want more games, which is probably something you're hoping for, like us, then it's probably for the best.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and looks good to me. It looks like God of War, actually, perspective wise.
Yeah, at a certain point on show days, we're not going to know what you're talking about, and for me, that's around 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Once I hit that point, I'm here setting up for the show, not paying attention to what's going on. So that's probably why it slid under the radar for us. Here we go. El Guapo 3385. Matt, what's your hype meter for the Snyder Cut and Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Hype meter for the Snyder Cut is below ground.
I agree with that.
I'm going to watch it just because it's part of the zeitgeist, but I could not possibly
just seems like a publicity stunt to me.
It's a publicity stunt that cost them $100 million.
Why?
By the way, Justice League, when you take into full account, Justice League is the most expensive movie ever made now.
Really? Because of the extra 100 that they just tacked on?
Snyder spent $300 million on it before he left the project. Whedon spent another $70 to $100 million in reshoots, and now he's spent another $70 to $100 million in his Snyder Cut reshoots. So we're talking about a $500 million movie now. For what?
For what?
For what?
That is a perfect example of throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, but at least
about-
it came out, unlike Star Citizen.
Right.
So yeah, I have never liked the Zack Snyder movie. I've seen all of his movies. I kind of like the Owl one, I guess. But I've never liked the Zack Snyder movie. I do not expect this to change my mind. It will probably be better than the one that came out in theaters, but that movie was terrible too. Whatever. I expect it to be a lateral move. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm excited for because I like both those actors in those characters and their antagonistic relationship to each other in Civil War. If it's just a series, it's entirely like the two of them bickering with each other, like they were in the car in Civil War. I'm happy with that. I like WandaVision, okay, but I think I'm kind of ready for a more standard issue Marvel series. Like I'm kind of like, it's just going to be them running around doing spy stuff and throwing shields. And so I'm kind of good with that at this point.
Yeah. WandaVision was a pretty big curveball, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I think it was good.
I liked it. I appreciate what they're after for it, but I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm ready for some Marvel meat and potatoes now.
Yep. I don't think you're alone on that.
I think it's also notable that this was supposed to be the first one. Like Falcon Winter Soldier was supposed to come first, like last August, before WandaVision. WandaVision was not meant to kick off the Disney Plus Marvel shows, but it just happened to because they finished it first. Because the pandemic, they had to finish shooting on location, I think in Prague, for Falcon Winter Soldier. They couldn't do that until like November.
Okay. JM Rain, thank you for all the tier 1 subs you're giving out to our viewers. That's freaking awesome. We'll answer one more question. Here's a good one from Congrim1. What games are on your hard drives that you haven't played in a very long time but refuse to uninstall because you think or want to go back to someday? Matt, you can go first.
You don't have time for that.
Well, you can just list one. One that's top of mind.
I mean, up until today, I probably would have said Skyrim, but I did play it today. The other one, I guess, would probably be Final Fantasy 14. Like one of these days, I'll get around to it, and play Shadowbringers, but I just haven't. Okay. It's hard to sit down and really commit to an MMO these days.
I mean, I'll never do that. That's never going to happen. I don't know what it would take at this point, Matt, for me to play an MMO, because I've had so many people say, this is the one you're going to like give this one a chance, it's different, and I try them, and like an hour in, I'm like, nope, I'm not going to stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is better than most that I've played.
Yeah.
But like,
I'm going to play PSO2, actually. I'm going to give that a go. That's kind of an
PSO2
MMO.
is an action game, though, so it's more your
really
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Final Fantasy 14 does a pretty good impression of an action game, but you're still pressing buttons and waiting for the attack to happen. Like, it's still MMO, but it feels actiony. The thing I like about Final Fantasy 14, I haven't gotten to the stuff everybody says is the good stuff. I'm just still working my way through the vanilla stuff. But the thing I did like about it, it had a real sense of place. And when I went back to certain cities and towns, it felt like a city. It felt like a town. Reporting to people in the bureaus felt like I was telling someone something that they hadn't seen before, that I was reporting from this big wide world. Like there's a sense of scale and place in Final Fantasy 14 that a lot of MMOs never managed to capture. And I appreciate that. I can see why people like it so much. It's still kind of a slog right now. In terms of, I go back to it every couple of weeks to try to make more progress to get to this stuff that everybody says is so amazing.
Yeah,
and it's just taking a while.
Yep. For me, it is the Demon's Souls remake on my PlayStation 5. It is still on my hard drive. I do not have the heart to delete it because that's
valuable real estate.
It is, but I want to play it, man, and like. I've been teasing myself, like I've been going on YouTube and watching like some parts of it, like, and I don't know if I'm doing it because I want to convince myself to go back and play it, or if I'm doing it because I know I'm never going to go back and play it. But it has sat on my hard drive all this time on my PlayStation 5 hard drive, and I just cannot delete it because I do like it. It's just so disheartening when you die and you have to go all the way back to the beginning again. And I will say this, like I feel like I'm better at it than I am at a lot of From Software games, even though this wasn't technically developed by From. I can't delete it. It keeps sitting there, and trust me, I have looked at it so many times. Like I installed The Division 2 on my PS5, and I had to delete a lot of stuff to make room for it. And I had to make hard decisions, and I couldn't get rid of it. It's still there, and I don't know. Maybe it may not make the cut much longer. But you know what? Everything's really dry right now. Maybe I should go back and give it another try and give it another go. I've watched enough of people playing it on YouTube now that I honestly feel like I probably would be a lot better at it than I was when I first started playing it and started trying to play it. So that's the game for me. That's just been sitting there, and every time I install something new and I have to delete something, I look at it and I'm like, I can't, I won't, and I don't. So for me, it's the Demon's Souls remake. It's just so damn pretty. And I know it's a really good game that I feel like I should give more of a chance to than I have. So I just have not managed to be able to take it off of my hard drive yet, and I'll keep you updated, and I'll let you know if I actually go back and play it. That might be a good thing for me to stream, honestly, me playing the Demon's Souls remake. People seem to like Shane versus Dark Souls way back in the day. Shane versus Demon's Souls might be even better.
Oh, and speaking of going back to play things that you probably wouldn't play, I put something real dumb in this week. Feast your eyes on that act of violence.
Wow.
Who remembers X-Men Destiny?
Not a lot of people.
The game that got pulled from shelves because what was it? Silicon Knights went down in flames.
Yep. Were you able to play it? Like, is it playable
in this
still?
thing or something?
Yeah.
Wasn't that it? They used like Unreal assets that were not like licensed or something.
Yep. Were you able to play it?
Out. Yeah, I was playing it. It's still bad.
Did you install it on your Series X?
No, I put it on my 360. It's not backwards compatible.
Okay. And it probably never will be because
never will be. No.
It's illegal. All right, that's it for GameFace episode 248. I can't believe the show ended up being 3 hours. I'm really shocked at that. I didn't think when I looked at the rundown today we were going to be able to get to it, but somehow we did. We
talked for like 40 minutes about Ninja Turtles, so we got there.
Sometimes we go down the nostalgia rabbit hole and we ramble a little bit, but I have a feeling
that whole segment we say like 4 sentences about the actual video game.
The new one.
The
We hardly talked about it. We talked about the old one and why Ninja Turtles still matter.
The Ninja Stars and bringing nunchucks to school. And
well, the good news is everyone who watches GameFace or is on Sifted or on our Patreon, they're older like us, and I think they appreciate that kind of discussion. It feels good to talk about the old days sometimes. We don't do it that often, but for something like this, I think it's okay. So anyway, that's episode 248. If you're listening to this show out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else where you may find it, or if you're watching the archive on YouTube and you want to support us, we really appreciate it if you could, if you would, and you should. Head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. And if you can't afford to support us and you want to know when stuff goes up for free, you'll probably want to follow the site on Twitter, and that's @SiftedGames. If you want to holler at me on Twitter, I am @Dinfire. If you want to find Matt, he is @MKyle. That's MKEIL. So on behalf of Matt, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in for the live stream here on Twitch, which you can find every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.